Good morning, all. Thank you for joining us today for a session on ICT education in India 2025 and beyond. On behalf of IEEE ComSoc Bangalore chapter and Exicom members and IEEE, I once again extend a warm welcome to all the participants that have joined with us today morning. For folks who are not aware of IEEE and who are new to IEEE, IEEE is world's largest technical professional organization dedicated to advancing technology for benefit of humanity. IEEE and its members inspire a global community through its highly cited publication, conferences, technology standards, and professional and educational activities. We represent Communications Society, ComSoc of IEEE with over 400 members in Bangalore section and with around 30,000 plus members across the globe. IEEE Communications Society promotes the advancement of science, technology, and applications in communications and related disciplines. It fosters the presentation and exchange of information among its members and technical community throughout the world. With this brief introduction, I would like to hand over the virtual podium to our chair, Dr. Aloknath Dey, for the opening remarks. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Chengappa, and very good morning to all. This is a pleasure. Every Saturday, every alternate Saturday, we have been meeting to discuss many of the technical topics on 5G, its design, architecture, deployment. Recently, we have started the 6G workshop, and we will take it to a bigger heights for that. So along with many of the technical forums, we are also catering to our student community needs. And we have 9 student sections, and they've been very active, and their promotions of their activities, things that we are presenting for them, tutorials. Last week we did a global education program from the global IEEE ComSoc. This is on beyond 5G and IoT human machine communications. This has been a summer school, 8 editions. And from 25 countries, people joined to be able to listen. And it was a 3-day program, almost each day, 6 hours times 3, so 18 hours program that we have conducted from Bangalore. So I'm very proud of our Exicom members, volunteers, success, and the drive that is happening. And we also are doing in the softer programs, in this difficult time of COVID, how people should cope up, how should they nurture their careers. And in that regard, I think today's topic is also quite interesting, I believe. We wanted to hear ICT education in India, and not just immediate needs, but there is a lot of disruptions that are happening and how we can see a little bit 3 years down the road. And who can be better partner than IIITB? So when I invited Professor Sadagopan and Professor Das, they were very kind, and I'm very happy to see so many faculties that have joined from IIITB. So thank you for participating. Thank you for collaborating with us. And this morning, let's have some fun and explore how things look like and what we should do from academia, from industry, right, for our next generation leaders. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing those words of encouragement. We also have among us Professor Jyotsna Bapat, who is one of our Exicom member and also Dean of IEEE IIITB. Ma'am, I would also request you to address our participants and share your thoughts on this session.
Thank you, Chengappa. Today is a special occasion for IIITB. Our founding director, Professor Sadagopan, as well as the future director, Professor Das, are both present and will be talking about their vision for the future for the technical education in India. IIITB is a deemed to be university founded in 1999. We are a postgraduate institute offering degrees in computer science, electronics and communication engineering, and digital society. In addition to the course-based degrees, which are our flagship programs, the MTech as well as the integrated MTech program, our vibrant research program allows us to offer 2 research degrees, the Master of Science by Research and PhD. IIITB hosts large multidisciplinary research projects centers in the areas of machine learning, robotics, wireless communication, Internet of Ethical Things, and many more. We are located in Electronic City, and all our admissions are based on JEE and GATE. Thank you very much. Looking forward to a great session today.
Thank you, ma'am. We also have among us Dr. Naveen Kumar, Secretary, IEEE Bangalore section, and also past chair of IEEE ComSoc Bangalore chapter. Naveen sir, we would also like you to address our participants.
Thank you, Chengappa, and thank you, Dr. Alok, and thank you very much, Professor Sadagopan, and of course, Professor Devavarta Das. They are always with us, and it is a great to see a lot of faculty from IIITB. And recently, of course, Professor Das has pushed Professor Jyotsna in our team ExeCom. So that is another added feature for our ExeCom ComSoc Bangalore. And on behalf of Bangalore section as well, as I represent Bangalore section as a secretary, so we welcome all of you to this very interesting talk, rather discussion, as Dr. Alok says, what is going to be ICT education or future education in India. So I once again welcome all of you, all the participants, and the guest, Professor Sadagopan and Devavarta Das, Dr. Alok, and all delegates. So with this, thank you very much, and thanks Chengappa for inviting her suddenly to me. Thank you very much. Please go ahead, enjoy.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Before we go on to the next phase, a bit of housekeeping announcement. So we request all the participants to stay on mute during the session. And if there are any queries, we encourage them to post it on the chat window. We would be addressing it at the end of the session. So moving forward with the planned agenda, I would now request Dr. Alok Nath Dey to introduce the first speaker of today, Professor S. Sadagopan. Sir, over to you.
Thank you. So I know Professor Sadagopan for almost 20 years in different forums and workshops that we have been meeting, we have been talking, and IIIT Bangalore. And we have a special program from Samsung with IIITB for last 8 years. We have been, nurturing our employees. And this is the 6th batch that is graduating, almost 30 members from each of these batches. And thanks again with this opportunity. I wanted to thank also for supporting, and this can open up some kind of executive education and engineering domain. And we might talk later, but let me at this point introduce formally Professor Sadagopan. Is the director of IIIT Bangalore, graduate of Madras University and Purdue University, US. He taught for 25 years plus at IIT Kanpur, IIM Bangalore, IIT Madras, and IIIT Bangalore, in addition to short teaching assignments at Rutgers, US, and AIT Bangkok. He has wide research interests that include operations research, multi-criteria optimization decision theory, simulation, enterprise computing, programming languages, databases, multimedia, and e-governance. He has authored 7 books, several book chapters and papers, fellow of IET UK and Computer Society of India. He's a senior member of IEEE, ACM, and AIS. Professor Sadagopan consults widely across different industry segments: auto, manufacturing, banking, IT, and social sector, lectures extensively at corporations, industry events, and universities in North America, South America, Europe, Middle East, Asia, Australia, and New Zealand on all aspects of IT. He serves on the board of Bharat Electronics, Navali Lignite Corporation, and Indian Renewable Energy Agency, and IIIT Bhubaneswar, IIIT Delhi, and IBAB earlier. He was also on the board of Bank of India, NMTC, VisualSoft, Megasoft, Informatics, and Shaman Software. Professor Sadagopan is a member of Karnataka Knowledge Commission, Chief Minister's Vision Group on IT, NASCOM Regional Council, and ISA Executive Council. He's the chair of IEEE Computer Society Bangalore chapter and member of ACM in the council. He's also a member of WW Conference Committee. He writes extensively for the popular press. He's a featured columnist of Times of India, and I see him ICT happening in every month in India. He summarizes in LinkedIn and many other places. As you can see, his industrial affiliations as well as the academic flavor and drive for the institute. So with that note, I will request Professor Sadagopan to initiate his talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Day, and thank you, IEEE ComSoc. I think thank you all. I think there are already 56 people. So I think Saturday morning, I think it is such a privilege to be with all of you. When Dr. Alok Day suggested that, we plan a talk, so initially I thought for about 20 minutes, then he said, make it about 30 minutes. And I thought that, as someone said, it is always good to think of the future with the benefit of the past, right? So we should have a perspective of the past so that we can actually look into the future. So what I'm going to spend is approximately about 25-30 minutes, and about half of it about what I call education in India yesterday and today, because we know exactly where we are, what are our strengths, and then spend another about 10 minutes looking into the future. So that is how. Of course, it's a wide canvas topic, okay? So I don't want to kind of tire the listeners with too many details, but I do want people to kind of carry about half a dozen things after this talk, okay? So what are the things? They will become clear as you hear. So one is what is called an MCA, Master of Computer Applications. I will talk a little bit about it. The second is the famous 3 Indian algorithms, so something which we all should know. And then the third is the AKS primality test, which is again got India into the global screens everywhere, because it brought a lot of fame to this country as a very fundamental contribution in computing from India. And the 2 pet themes which I have used it in multiple fora and people liked it, and what I call EQQ and QQ. So they will become clear as the session unfolds. Okay, so these are the 5 things which I want you to remember at the end of the talk. Okay, so the next slide, please. Okay, so other thing which I thought that I don't want to spend too much time on the past, but I do realize that 20 years from now, probably there'll be no one left to even tell the world about this. As a country, we are not a great documenting country. Many things are not well documented. But I thought that particularly some of the student friends, I want them to know, we did some amazing stuff even in 60s. So something people should not forget. And a whole bunch of things which we are doing in the last 20 years, and what I think we should be doing in the next 10 years. The next slide, please. Okay, so this is something which is interesting for many of you to note. Way back in 60s, we actually had lots and lots of things going. And you remember, see, the students will be amused that there was a time when there are about 8 or 10 experiments across the globe where people built from the scratch a full-fledged computer, starting from circuitry onwards. Obviously, compilers, everything, right? And TAFR was one place where it happened, and it was called TAFR Automatic Calculator. It was inaugurated by the Prime Minister Nehru. Okay, that's number one. Second thing is there was a nice healthy competition between Bombay and Calcutta. Remember, I'm talking of 50s and 60s. And I think Bombay and Calcutta and Delhi, these were the places where India was thinking of the future. So there was a nice competition between TAFR in Mumbai and Bombay then, and the Indian Statistical Institute in Calcutta, and an unusual person called P.C. Malhanabis, okay? And he started the Indian Statistical Institute, and he actually went on to the Planning Commission. And then those of you who remember the 101 economics, there is a famous Leontief input-output model, and that needed a lot of cranking of numbers. And the Planning Commission used to be doing that. And then it was part of the second 5-year plan, was one of those perfect model-driven plan. coming out of input-output models. So Professor Narasimhan at TIFR and Malganabis at Calcutta, they were the people who created the first Indian computers. Of course, just for information, the first computer which is working and which was kind of bought actually came to Bombay. There used to be something called SO Standard Oil, which is now BPCL. And of course, educationally, the first computer arrived in IIT Kanpur, 62, 63, I'm not sure exactly, okay, around that time. And the TIFR had this 3600, which is Control Data Corporation. It's an amazing company which actually led to the Cray Corporation. Of course, many people may not even have heard of it, but it's important. Okay, quickly. The next slide. Okay. So this is something which I thought that, it's important for people to know about. Even though we were kind of slow, we were actually quite ahead. And even in 60s and 70s, we actually had an interdisciplinary program, an MTech in computer science. Those
Sir,
days,
sorry.
MTech, yeah.
I think the slides have knocked off. So.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah. Vishnu, can you just?
No, I can see. I don't know.
Yeah, we can see it. I think.
Yeah, we all can
it's
see.
okay.
All right.
It is
Yeah.
okay.
Please carry on.
Okay. Sorry. Thanks for pointing it out. Is my audio okay?
Yes. All.
Yeah.
To check. Okay. And of course, initially MTech was a first degree. So what I feel is, because we did not have a BTech computer science, so people who had a BTech in different engineering branches could actually join MTech. Okay. And of course, what is called the second degree of MTech with sufficient number of BTechs happened it took almost 10 years. And the very first BTech graduates came out in 1983. And if you are interested, something interesting maybe for you to know, the very first batch had Rajiv Motwani, and our friend Keshav Nori had taught him. And when sometime back, Keshav Nori had put a nice remark about Rajiv Motwani. And those of you in the audience, Rajiv Motwani happens to be a Stanford prof who actually counts a large number of PhD students, and 4 of them happen to be the founders of Yahoo and Google. So the rest is history. Okay. So the official full-fledged Department of Computer Science happened in 1984. That is at one level. Okay. But what happened was that it is interesting in this country that even in early 80s, people thought that there is going to be demand for different kind of people, because traditional computer science program at an undergraduate BTech level at those days, we used to think of computers are important, hardware is important, electronics. Mostly we took electronics engineering students. And they used to have an excellent course on architecture and also computer systems, etc. But with the maturity of the computer and the largeness of computers likely to come up, and the fact that there are applications like banking and insurance which are requiring a large number of people, so India saw a need for application software professionals. So they will be actually focusing on systems analysis, application software, data processing, and they will be industry oriented. And the focus would be on manpower development and not necessarily hardcore R&D. So the advantage was that to teach many of these, you don't necessarily need a large number of labs, and you have to be taught well. So what was happening was that the Department of Electronics that was established in the government, so put this idea around, and several people thought about it. Finally, there was a committee under Professor Rajaraman at IIT Kanpur, which actually worked out the details. And 10 universities were chosen: Delhi, Pune, Madurai, Central University of Hyderabad, etc. They were funded with computers, scholarship, and teacher training. And they essentially said that because the country has a large number of excellent BSc graduates, can we build on their general proficiency, typically mathematics and physics particularly, so that they can be trained for the application software industry. And that proved to be a phenomenal success, because I think the next 10, 20 years, what you see as the Indian software industry, the feedstock for that happens to be the MCA. MCA itself is upon, you see, those of you who are familiar with the C++, you know it's the MBA plus B becomes C, right? So in that sense, it was a very unusual program, unique to India. And unfortunately, what happened was that in the last 15-20 years, because MCA did not need much hardware, etc., and because it was a going program, too many colleges created copycat MCA program. The quality suffered a lot. But otherwise, I think this is unique. And I thought that, just a kind of a side remark, but I think just to pep up the mood. So there are two rock stars who happen to be the MCAs. One happens to be the current chairman of Tata Sons, okay, the largest corporate in this country, N. Chandrasekaran, who used to run the TCS. And the other person happens to be in the audience, our own colleague, R. Chandrasekhar. Okay. Okay. The next slide, please. This, I think I also want to kind of tell, particularly the students, see, education is not a one-way street, right? So there is something called knowledge creation and there is something called knowledge dissemination. Both have to happen together, right? If you don't have a knowledge creation, so knowledge dissemination can become very insipid. That is where the research comes. And I thought that some of the research, okay, perhaps the most well-known research at the time happens to be three people who used to be at IIT Kanpur at that time. Malhotra used to be a student and then a faculty member, Kumar, and Maheshwari used to teach at IIT Delhi. And this was basically an interesting complexity theory result. And essentially MaxFlow and MinCat, it's a famous network algorithm. So MaxFlow algorithm actually had a polynomial bound. Okay, so it's interesting. So what you have is that you could actually have a paper which actually comes up with an algorithm which is way ahead of every algorithm around and whose complexity is something which is nice. And so it coming in information processing letters, so it became one of the widely cited and perhaps for quite some time the most well-known result coming from the Indian academic community. And a lot of times, because now I think slowly India is more accepted and Indian names are not very foreign to many countries, but those days Indian names were foreign to many countries. So loosely used to be called a 3-Indian algorithm. I checked even on the Google, it still says it is 3-Indian algorithm. Okay, so it's interesting. So I wanted people to know that, and remember 1978, just for our students, those days India did not even have easy access to a typewriter on which mathematics can be typed. Okay, so that was the difficulty with which India operated. Okay, so the fact that, remember India used to be, of course, we are still not a rich country, but we are no longer that poor. So India used to be an extremely poor country. In spite of that, great work happened. I also want people to know some names. And Keshav Nori, IIT Kanpur, lots of work in theory, and and the FTCS conference started from IIT Kanpur, and Pandurangan from IIT Madras, and later ISI, other people. Good piece of research. There's Damdare at IIT Bombay, his textbook on OS, and then IIT Kharagpur, PPC areas of VLSA, AA, and search. He was doing it so far ahead of his time. Professor Pathak and Sarda in the database area from IIT Bombay, IIT Jain, IIT Delhi, Professor Jain in networking. Of course, IISc, Professor Rajaraman had lots and lots of textbooks. And we had some amazing projects in the form of VRNet and KBCS. So I want people to know that these things are also important because they became the building block for what you see as the IT education today. The next slide. Vishnu? Yeah. Okay. I think what happened was that come 90s, so I think the country really took off in a big way. So I think CS departments were there all over. The very large programs in so many institutes happened. And this was also the starting time for the first generation of IIITs. So I want my colleagues to know, professionals to know, but it's important, sometimes we forget. I think The political leaders also have contributed a lot. Sometimes this is not well documented. I thought that I should kind of document it. It was Madhavrao Singh who took lots of interest, and he took the help of Seshagiri. The very first IIIT happened in his town called Gwalior. And Murli Manohar Joshi was instrumental in getting IIIT Allahabad. The S.M. Krishna, the then Chief Minister of Karnataka, was instrumental in getting IIIT Bangalore to whatever it is today. And Chandrababu Naidu is always very good at giving competition to people. The IIIT idea was first visualized by Karnataka, but before we could start, IIIT Hyderabad started. That is how Chandrababu Naidu was giving a good competition to Karnataka. Okay, and Mr. Naveen Patnaik and Sheila Dikshit, they were personally involved in IIIT. So I want people to know this. And of course, TCS and Infosys had huge training centers, and in some sense, they created lots and lots of material, which actually became part of what is called the IT education. And I don't want to forget Yashwant Kanedkar's book on Let Us See. Not many people do not know that this is one book that has gone into print in millions of copies. Okay, very rarely you will find a textbook which is actually beating every other bestseller. You know, say 100,000, 200,000 is considered a great number. Million is considered a very large number. 2 million is still a large number. And this book has crossed it. I feel very good about it because I had the privilege of having taught a course in Yashwant Kanedkar at IIT Kanpur. Okay, the next slide. Okay, so I think that is quickly about 15 minutes. Okay, so maybe, okay. So what I will do is I will talk about the last 20 years, a few things that have happened is very important. And of course, you know, the BTech is very, very important for sustaining the IT in the country. And the IITs were just 5 or 6. And suddenly the new generation of IITs came, remember, from 5 years, 23. And then in 2009, to a project, the Planning Commission had a 2,000 crore project where 20 IIITs, each at 100 crores, were created. And that is something which actually the country is benefiting. But I think to me, most exciting stuff is Manindra Agarwal, our good friend at IIT Kanpur. We know him as a student, and then he was our colleague, currently the deputy director. Neeraj and Nitin, his students, together, it is called Aks Algorithms. This is something which really did India proud because they solved the problem which is running for centuries. Okay, so I think there are parts to it. One is it is earth shaking because it actually shows that prime is in. You actually have an algorithm which is polynomial, which can check the primality checking. Second thing is it uses some interesting tweaks, and you know, earlier the algorithms were statistical, this was deterministic. Much more important stuff is the algorithm itself is just a 12-step and kind of something which you can follow with a reasonable amount of mathematics. It's not that complicated. So people kind of praised it for its beauty, for its simplicity, and of course, it is, you know, phenomenal impact. Of course, Manindra got the Gödel Prize. He got several other prizes, but I think to get a Gödel Prize is something which, and because it is 2006 result, internet was already there. This is also a paper which within hours got the global attention. They did not have to wait for weeks and months before people talk about it. It was just a few hours, and everybody said this is something which has to be taken stock. Okay, so in that sense, you know, the IT computer science education in this country has done the country proud, and a lot of things have happened in the last 10-20 years. And you remember that there was no global prize coming out of India. Okay, and I think Infosys did a great job. They actually funded the Infosys ACM prize, been going on for the last several years. And of course, last 20 years, thanks to IIT's growth and the overall growth in the research, etc., the IIIT is happening. We produce a reasonable number of PhDs. I still remember when Microsoft Research India was commissioned. You know, there were some amazing people from all over the world. You know, I was also there. Somebody asked me to talk about the PhD production, and I actually told them that, look, I must confess that the PhD production in 2001 in computer science in India was abysmally low. In fact, the entire country produced less number of PhDs than what one large department called UC Berkeley was producing at that time. So it was, I felt bad to make that statement. At the same time, I had to be truthful, and it was a small number of people, so I could share. But I think looking back in 20 years, things have changed a lot. And of course, last several years, we actually track the PhD production in computer science in India, and we are doing well. Of course, we have a long way to go, but we are no longer that bad. And of course, ACM India Council has created lots of conferences, etc. And thanks to the NPTEL and SWAYAM, I think the reach of high quality education to a very large number of people. So this country, the numbers are large. I have put it at the end, we are talking of 1.5 million engineering graduates. To give a number, comparable number for United States is 100,000. Really talking of 15 times more than that. Okay, with that kind of number, they're able to reach because of NPTEL and SWAYAM. So before I kind of pass on, I just want you to, I will spend a minute because this is something which, Business Week visiting this country some time back, and then the editor, so we all are putting together, and finally, people are asking how come India has been so successful and what is the mantra, and this is what about half a dozen of us together came up with. This is what is called the EQQ. The reason why I want you to remember this EQQ is this is something where the educationist, we have played a role. The reason why India could do fairly well is due to combination of what is called English language, that is the E, the quality of engineering, that is 1Q, and the quantity of engineers, that is the second Q. Israel has no problem with English. Israel has no problem with the quality of engineers, but they just can't match in terms of quantity. Philippines has no problem with English. Philippines has no problem with the quantity, but they have problem with quality. China has no problem with quantity or quality, but they have problem with English. Okay, so I can go on, but this kind of triumvirate, English and the quantity of number of engineers, quantum of engineers, and the quality of engineering together seems to have given India its competitive advantage. And Business Week went and wrote something about it, but that's beside the point. But I think it is interesting. One can talk about Singapore, we can talk about several other countries, Vietnam. So each time you find Singapore does not have number, Vietnam does not have English, but that is how we seem to sustain. And I think we are doing fairly well in quantity. Of course, we need to do more in the quality. We'll come back to it. Okay, so this is something which I want you to remember. EQQ is our mantra. Okay, and then I have about 7 minutes. Okay, the last slide. Next slide. Okay, Vishnu, the next slide. Okay, I think. Okay, so I think professors have to kind of give a homework or say something which will become recently, arguably. It's important. Okay, so the real challenge for India is that in the 70s and 80s, I would say even until the mid of 90s, we had one advantage. We had excellent quality, mostly coming from IITs and the premier institutes, but the numbers were really, really small. Because, the typical IIT Kanpur would have a BTech strength in computer science of 60, 70, 40, 50. That's the kind of numbers from each IITs, okay? Whereas the demand was in thousands to tens of thousands. So they were not even, they were just in hundreds. So anticipating the need, a lot of colleges came, but unfortunately what happened was they could manage a great quantity, but quality dramatically suffered. So what I expect in the next 10 years is we should have large number without compromising on quality. How do we manage high quantity and high quality? And I think what we saw in the last 1 year due to COVID, the Zoom university I call, online, in some sense is likely to have an impact on this. So, quality at scale possibly would be possible thanks to technology. I could be wrong, but this is what I feel. And with some experience here and there, I find that is something. But I think there are going to be 3 or 4 interesting things which we have to watch out. So I think you see that, Zoom University, what is beautiful about Zoom University is in a small hully, a school teacher using a simple whiteboard and a phone still able to do it. Doctors are actually doing remote consulting. Lawyers are doing remote consulting. Finance guys are not going to the office at all, but finance is happening. Culture, so many government departments are working from home, commerce, real estate. So all of them are getting impacted by. Okay. So in that sense, the growth for IT is going to be much larger. But I want you to kind of keep this in mind. Slide. I feel that more IT, but there will be less number of IT professionals. You might say that isn't it a contradiction? I'll take an analogy, maybe it will kind of help you. See, the number of cars that are being produced, if you start about 100 years back to now, okay, so maybe 1920s there were no cars, really speaking, but I'm saying this, if you kind of split, okay, so at least from 1930s to etc. So last 100 years, the number of cars produced have been going up, but we don't see too many automotive engineers. Because what happens is the skill that is required is actually so many things. So lots of people are serving the automotive industry. That is undoubtedly true, but many people are not necessarily calling themselves automotive engineers. So I feel that something like that might happen even to IT. The sense the standalone IT actually be much smaller. Okay, I could be right, I could be wrong. The second thing which I want to kind of, I'm sure Professor Das and others will talk more about it, the app economy. One company called Apple alone distributes several tens of billions of dollars to its developers as a fee for as the cost of the apps. People pay for the app, right? That is getting distributed. Apple collects it and gives it to the distributor. That is $20 billion. So the app economy is going to be large. And something interesting is happening in the last few years called low code, no code. Okay. Let me give a funny example that good old days when the human beings were starting the civilization. So because we wanted water, we set up our whatever house or hut on the banks of the river. And because we wanted fuel every day, we were going and cutting the trees to get the fuel, and so cooking itself was a big deal. So half the day was spent on cooking. But over the years, what has happened is, we have water supplies, so you can set up your house anywhere. You turn on the gas, the fire comes. So what has happened is cooking has changed. And in the last few years, cooking has changed even more, that you have something called MTR. You empty an MTR powder and you have bisibela bath. All that you do is put it in hot water. Okay. Code is actually going through something similar. Possibly I represent one generation where we actually were doing machine language coding. Okay. And of course, last several years, people have been coding it to high-level programming languages, C++, Java, etc. But already now, there are lots and lots of platforms where you don't have to write a single line of code, but nonetheless, you can do a fair amount of stuff. Okay, so there are many such platforms, and interestingly, many of these platforms come out of this country. Okay, you can go and take a look at low code, no code. So that is one. The second thing I find is that, Professor Das will talk about it more. I think Dr. Day also been talking about it quite a bit. I call this as a continuum. IoT produces a lot of data, so we get big data. We need to analyze big data, so we need automated tools. So we want analytics. And of course, analytics, you can't have too many analysts doing it. So you have AI, and AI alone is not sufficient because we need the machine to learn by itself. So we need machine learning and deep learning. then of course you have to kind of not only make a difference to software, we also have to make a difference to the hardware, the robotics, autonomous vehicles. So ML is big, analytics is big. But what some of us believe is that ML will be tomorrow's spreadsheet. Okay, let me repeat. ML will be tomorrow's spreadsheet. So many people are using spreadsheet to do so many things. There was a joke shared even by the CEO of GE. The GE runs on Excel spreadsheets, so the Excel spreadsheets actually do so many things. And so something similar might actually happening. Some cool algorithms will automate ML so much that we don't really need. I'm not saying that ML will go away, but the kind of hoopla that is made about analytics or ML will possibly come down because you don't need the large number. Okay, you would need reasonably large number, maybe 100,000, it's not going to be millions. Okay, and last two things are, to me, I just want you to keep this as we walk back from this talk. People talk about teaching coding to the schools. Okay, and of course, a lot of people laugh at it. I also agree, because it doesn't make sense to actually teach the way. Give them a stub book on C++ and teach them to the school. It doesn't make sense at all. But coding is actually becoming a foundational skill, and computing as a foundational science, just as mathematics has become. Remember, everybody needs mathematics, right? You could be a sales fellow, you could be a marketing fellow, you could be a production fellow, you could be a finance guy. But what happens is we don't necessarily think mathematics separately. Something similar happened, particularly with IoT coming, and lots and even our own life is getting digitalized. So automation we all will do even for our personal life. So in that sense, but of course it has to be done very well. So I think some ACM is doing some amazing experiments. What should be taught to the school children as coding? It is not coding in the sense of traditional programming language. And similarly, computing as a foundational science for every science students, including the biological science students, will become, to me, very important. Okay, so let me kind of stop here. So let me recall. Okay, just to go to the next slide. Okay, so CS education has grown steadily. And luckily, we do have a world-class and world scale in terms of ideas, research, education, companies, and products. But I think this is a question for all of us in this country. Will IT from India be world impacting? Okay, before I stop, let me recall, I want you to do remember MCA is something which was home cooked by India for India, something unique in India. And I want younger students to go and discover the 3 Indian algorithms as well as the AKS primality test of Manindra Agarwal. And the challenge for all of us is, how do we ensure that we do quality scale, IIT quality with much larger number from all the colleges, So a little bit ups and down could be there, but it can't be. There's too much of a gap between IIT quality and a college in the street corner. Okay, so I think if we can do that, and of course, last few days there has been some comments. Somebody came up with a number that a large number of jobs in IT will be gone, and then NASCOM came back and said no, the jobs will not go. So we don't know, but I think it is important that we don't lose, because automation can come in so many forms. Automation need not necessarily be in hardware form. Automation could also be in software form. Okay, so maybe I'll stop here, and then we'll come back with more questions. And thanks for the opportunity. Okay, over to you, Dr. Day.
Thank you, Professor Sadagopan, for bringing out this history, alive, of the CS and IT educations. And it reminded me, when I joined in 1980 to IIT Kharagpur, we did not have computer science. After our second year, we were given a choice to go for it, all the EC people and the topper of other departments. And many of the other people have gone, and some of us thought that EC is pretty good, sound, and what is this computer science? And subsequently, we saw that. And in the final years, when I did the project, it was with this punched card that we had to go in the night to book the time. And one card is wrong, and then you have to rerun this whole thing. The programming was little fun. And in 2 years down the road, things started changing abruptly. And that was the time, 1987, Rajiv Gandhi brought a lot of computer education. And in my master's time in IISc, I could start doing with the PCs. So it's a long history, and thank you for sharing your rich knowledge and experience in this regard. Also, the last part that you talked about on the future, projecting to future. So the lot of contradictions that you brought in, physical university versus the Zoom university. We don't know exactly how much, what will happen, but we do know that both may coexist in certain ratio, right? You talked about coding skill is important, but also you talked about no code, less code. So that's a kind of thing. You talked about more IT, but less IT professionals. So I think it is very interesting to see these contradictions that are ahead of us, and we need to be prepared, not knowing exactly how it will unfold. Sometimes we create the future, sometimes we live by it in a nice way. So thank you again. I'm sure many of the attendees have, let's give a big round of applause. And I'm sure many of the people would have questions and some of their anecdotes. We will come to the end of it. And thank you again. Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Day.
So with that, now we go to Professor Das. Dr. Devabrata Das is serving as Director Designate and Professor at IIIT Bangalore. Before joining IIITB, he has served at GSNL School of Telecommunications at IIT Kharagpur and later at Kirana Networks in New Jersey. He's a principal investigator, nodal officer of project under National Mission for Interdisciplinary Cyber Physical Systems in the area of Advanced Communication System from the DST and Government of India. He's the co-PI of a project from Tejas Network. He's PI of multiple sponsored projects from Intel, Hewlett-Packard, Microsoft, Motorola Research, Nokia, and others. Broadband, wireless MAC, QoS, energy saving methods, a lot of research interest in the IoT and wireless access networks. He received his PhD degree from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. Professor Das has more than 170 peer-reviewed papers in different transaction journals and international conferences. He has received 4 Best Paper Awards, 3 US and Indian patents, and 12 more are under review. He and his wireless network team had contributed ideas to IEEE Wireless Broadband Standard. He has received Professor K. Srinivasan Memorial Award 2017 for excellent teaching in the areas of telecom from IEEE. He is recipient of IEEE Region 10 Outstanding Volunteer Award in 2020, Global IEEE MGA Achievement Award 2012, Outstanding Volunteer Award IEEE Bangalore Section 2008, Fellow of IET, Fellow of IE, and Senior Member of IEEE, recipient of Hewlett-Packard Endowment Chair Professor in IIITB. He was Chairman of IEEE Bangalore Section 17, and he's Chair-elect 2021 IEEE India Council. He's a board member of IIIT Bhubaneswar, and he's in the technical steering committees for multiple conferences and departments of Government of India, Government of Karnataka. So he was the Dean Academic and R&D of IIIT Bangalore. I've got a lot of opportunities to work, discuss things, in IIITB, and as he has been also teaching in Samsung in the joint program that I mentioned. So thank you for everything, and the floor is yours to share about this topic of ICT education model for R&D in India. How does it look like into 2025 and beyond? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Day, for your kind introduction. Is my voice clear?
Yes,
Okay.
it's good.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Thank you. So, thank you, Dr. Day, and good morning to Professor Sadagopan, Dr. Aloknath Day, IEEE ComSoc Chair, and also the IEEE ComSoc Execom members, other my esteemed colleagues from IIIT Bangalore, and also from the other institutions who are attending these talks, and also my respected senior professors, and also the industry friends. I also want to thank Dr. Dey in particular because for this visionary topic, ICT education model for India, and he has given me to talk on for R&D for ICT education in India and 2025 and beyond. So this topic is very pertinent with respect to the present dynamics in many respects, and I will be talking about that very shortly. And I also want to thank Professor Sadagopal, who has given me a lot of freedom to teach and research for last 18 years when I was working in IIIT Bangalore. And he himself has a huge experience, 35 plus years of contribution in ICT teaching, research, and development. This workshop is in honor of him for his contributions, particularly to the ICT. With that respects, let me start with this topic given, this ICT education model for R&D for 2025 and beyond for our engineering institutes. So I have divided, before I go to my talk, into three categories. These are the things which I want to say quickly is that in ICT education and R&D, if you look at in any engineering institutes, is the last link between the academia to the job. Because if you go to the schools, class 10, class 12, then after that, the engineering is the last link before you jump to a job, whether you are going to industry or teaching. So in India, if you look at around 95% goes to industry and 5% of the rest 5% goes to the maybe as a faculty or administration jobs. If you look at our present government of Karnataka's IT secretaries, or the e-governance secretary, or the if you BBMPs, all those officers who belongs to one of these IITs or somewhere. So if you look at these major chunk goes to the industry. So for that, we need to understand two things. Number one, where is the input students to the engineering institute stands in India? The input coming to the engineering institutes, where they stand, what is their background, what are their knowledge, and what their expectations. And number two is that what expected by the ICT industries and academia. If my 95% goes to these industries, what is the expected from this industry, that what kind of students they need their input, and with respect to the R&D knowledge and all. And 2025 and beyond is we need to understand, because if you don't understand their need and what is our input, in between we are the last link between the academia and the industry. So we have to bridge that link. So that link bridging is the third point which I'll be talking about, is that we need to understand, first of all, as an academia, is that we need above 2 points, point 1 and point 2. And engineering institutes should plan to build students to face the R&D challenges in industry, and also a new faculty or a fresh faculty member. So this is the role which I will come at the end, third part of my talk. But first two part of my talk will be that to understand as much as possible. I may not have the 100% to the point of the point 1 and point 2, but I will try to practically, reality of the life, what is going on in 1 and 2. I mean, this input should be to the engineering institute, should be matched with our output should be matched with the input of the industry. So the last bullet, which was request from the Professor Dey to talk to me about that recent national mission, the project he talked about now a few minutes back, which you have got on advanced communication systems. It's a huge project of 150 crores, but this one I will keep it later on. After 6 months, I will talk about it, especially in IEEE ComSoc later on, or related to this project and its output. But today I will be only focusing on the first and second and third 3 bullets. So the inputs to the engineering institute in India. So if you look at which you know very well, courtesy joint entrance exam main or teaching style of class 10 and also plus 2. Due to COVID, work from home, let me tell you, these are very latest information internally. Parents spending more time with the children academics, because people used to travel to the company, coming back 2 to 2.5 hours used to be lost. But now that is not lost. The time that they're saving, they're spending more time with the children, and children are also at home. So please keep it in mind, the quality of top 10,000 ranks of the JE will go up. That means the cutoff, which was say say cutoff was set 300 marks out of the 340 for the 10,000. So it will go to 310 or 320, which is a very stiff rise. Within a 1 year, it has been a very stiff rise. And we can see some of those results in our things. So please try to understand that students are becoming better, which will come into you as inside the institute. Last two classes of class 10, 11, which we call them with a COVID batches and all, will be in second and third year in 2025. Those who are now in class 10, after 2-3 years, they write the JEE, they will come in. And so at 2025, according to the topic given, they will be in the second year and third year. Again, those will be two categories, through JEE and without JEE. So what will be their background, where they stand, and how to build them for the R&D? That will be a challenge, because this class 10 and 11, they haven't gone through very tough time because they're very young, 15 years old. They have not given exams many extent. This is very interesting, which we are not talking about, but we will face in 2025 and beyond. National Education Policy 2020, by 2025 and beyond, if class 10 and 12 JEE by local languages come to, and they will write class 10 and 12, they will study in local languages, they will write JEE also local languages. Then look at your class as a teacher or a professor. The local languages come to an institute for engineering. A class will be mixture of Tamil, Kannada, Malayali, Telugu, Bengali, and imagine about the teaching and R&D discussion. So can you imagine then how we'll do that? Then that the question posed to me, 2025 beyond, I can see NEP may bring in this, may bring it. So then need a research on this natural language processing only for research discussion. My research word in a Tamil, particular word, and a research word is used for a particular thing in Telugu may not be the same. But English is a common language, we understand that. So everyone was now English, but the government is saying, no, class 10, 12, JEE, everything you go by the local languages, then there may not be English there at all when they come to engineering colleges. So how this kind of things will lead to, and you're asking to do the R&D. So keep it in mind, all those things. So what Indian students have? Now look at the Indian students' positive points. Good memory. They have a wonderful memory from childhood days. They're by hearting the rhymes and the Sanskrit and all kind of essays, these, that. Beautiful memory they have. Try to understand the concepts by asking a lot of whys in the class from the schools. The smart students, they're really good. They ask a lot of whys. These are the positive points. Extremely analytical. You can't imagine. In our time, anything we used to read the question calmly, write down the steps, derive, and explain. But now all are multiple choice. So they have been taught in class 10 onwards, 10, 11, 12, that eliminate the wrong answer first. If there are 4 choices, you have to be very intelligent to first who are the 2 wrong answers, or 3. Then out of the 2 left, then you select the right answer. So they are very first to see these are the wrong and this is right. And they have been trained because they are now struggling between time versus accuracy. With a short time, how accurately I will select. So you think about a young brain, you are tuning continuously for 3 years, 10, 11, 12, 3 years, not 1 year, that please be analytically strong to eliminate the wrong first, then select the right one, then you will be selected, courtesy JEE. This is the only game. So this is the input to you. And they are burning up in this direction, then how will you tune them for R&D? They want to learn if somebody teaches very well and create interest in their mind on a subject. They're really good. They want to learn. They come, they're hungry, they want to learn. But you have to create interest, which depends on us with the professors. Parents and ecosystem try to support for studies. That's a very good point. In India is that. And lastly, I want to say hardworking and humble. These are the positive some extent, except I am not yet able to emphasize on eliminating the wrong first, then the right one. This is a little question mark, but other points are the positive from Indian students' point of view. Now I am coming to the majority of Indian students lacks with respect to R&D. What they lack, why we miss. First one is the fear of failure. They are always scared of failure from childhood. Parents doesn't support failures. Institutes, schools, They don't support failure. And also in the engineering, we don't support failure. So they have a fear, psychosis. Hey, if I fail, what other will think? More than the Western world. That is one of the major problems for any researcher. Research means, innovation means in the world it is written you will fail. And the fear don't allow them to take that risk. So that is one thing we have to think of, how to get rid of from their mind. Brain rarely tuned by teaching. These bright brains, which I said you in the last slides, not rarely tuned by teaching, process to visualize a research problem and how to solve it in BTech or MTech level. So they are not being taught how to visualize a problem. They have been always taught what others have seen a problem, how others have solved, and what is the concept behind the solution, what others have done. But they are not being in teaching, they are being not told that, hey, can you visualize a new problem in this area? After teaching some extent, you leave them. And are you able to solve it? So this is the biggest thing which you have to bring into the teaching if you want R&D more and more. And how to solve the research problem. So why is the clean, make them understand the concepts, and why not this idea? Why not this should come out from a student? Sir, why not this to solve this problem which I am thinking of? So these has to come in, this second bullet and third bullet. And how to communicate after that, how to communicate a research problem, idea, results to the outside world, to my professor or to my CTO, to my VP. That way of communication, they're by nature shy. These are the things we have to add in our teaching. Multiple choice in JEE has reduced their ability for stepwise thinking to solve a problem. This will be a big problem for the faculty and in the industry, because this multiple choice, and due to this online, they have lost the patience of solving the problem step by step, which is a complex problems. Majority of the brilliant brains in school, colleges are not taught to understand between research and innovation. Research means new idea. From research to how to make a product and in a company and sell it, that is not being taught. So research and innovations are interdependable. First research happens, then idea comes out of the some ideas goes for a product. From that profit happens, that money again fed to the research. So this has to be going into their thought process. And lastly, no training in academia how standards evolve. Everything is standardized, most of the things. So how from research to the innovation, or before, after research, how the standards, then the innovations, that has to come in. So these are the challenges in front of us. So now I will be going to the second one. What expected by our ICT industries from the academia to be part of 2025 and beyond? So we have to, as in for sitting from academia, we have to visualize that. Of course, to some extent it may be correct, or to some extent maybe we are missing some points where industry will help us. But we need to think about that. ICT technologies have been changing very fast. Rapid speed, around 100% changing within 1.5 years. 1.5 years or less than that. And thanks to Dr. De, in our convocation 2 years back, he was talking about this IEEE spectrum references, which I will tell you quickly. If you look at your mobile, if you are a version 10, and then when version 11 comes of your mobile, then you will find release 11, you'll find 30% of the new features. That version 11 comes within 6 months after when the 10 came. And the version 12 comes after 6 months. So 30% change in 11, 30% again change in the 12. Another 30% after 6 months means 90% change happened in your complete product. Okay, so that means close to 100% change within the 3 releases of your mobile. That means close within 1.5 years. This 300% close to change means innovations, completely new products, new things. For an example, your camera pixels, your resolutions, your memories, your computing speeds, power consumption, everywhere you have your efficiency goes up. So that shows ICT technologies are moving and fast and changing rapid speed. 1.5 years is a very small time where the 100% change happening in your things, and whatever maybe you have a product, starting from laptops, mobiles, anything. Automation will lead to R&D based ICT jobs, which Professor Sadagopan just touched base at his end of his talk. This automation will change the R&D job in ICT jobs and what education institutes should do now. So this is the expectations from the industry, that you should make them R&D. They should fast and adopt to the R&D of product of the company, and also the jobs are changing. So quickly, the majority of the ICT companies are working on, so for an example, AI, ML, DL, etc. in all domains, any critical application. So if you look at any company, go starting from Samsung, Google, Amazon's, or any our Infosys, TCS, they are different AML DL problems they are addressing. But very interesting is that any critical application in market till today, any critical, the word is here critical, I'm not saying normal applications, may not be there till date. And why? We have to understand, because that critical application has to come in under the AI/ML/DL. So our education R&D may help industry to move at that direction. Those kind of things may come in our mind. How to make AI/ML/DL possible for critical applications? So this is important. So how to do that? So I'll be talking about that little bit, couple of slides before I go to my third points. Now I'm covering my second point, industry's need. So 2025 and beyond, more acceptance of AI/ML/DL lies on not only on accuracy. Accuracy we know, because if you take a photograph, you are saying by my ML or DL algorithm, I am 90% accurate or 92% accurate. But another thing is that it is not 100% accurate. I'll show you 2 examples beyond this. So the accuracy added by trustworthiness. Can I depend on your AI/ML or DL algorithms? So the curriculum designer and researchers needs to think that in your domain, computer vision is one of the examples, any domain, you may be doing judgment, you may be in the law, you may be in the communications areas, you may be in the any of these areas, banking, loans, any of these areas where you are using AI/ML/DL, is it trustworthy? Is it not biased? Is it working properly? So how to go forward? Now I am still in accuracy, still research, major focus is on this accuracy. So how to be adopted for this critical kind of things. So in this regard, Indian research funding is very, Indian research funding, whether it's the government or industry, are moving more towards proof of concept and products. This is very, very clear, written on the wall now. Slowly they are moving away from only publications kind of research. They want to keep it publication kind of research. 20 to 30% of fund. Day before yesterday, there was a brainstorming in Ministry of Electronics and IT, who has been doing our broadband communication funding. In the brainstorming, the secretary asked us question that, hey, this paper publications fine, keep it 20, 30%, 70%, let us straight go to the proof of concept and product. India should go forward in Atmanirbhar state. So please, faculty member, all my colleagues and all my friends from the industry and academia, India is funding point of view also changing very rapidly. It was there, but it is rapidly changing. So now quickly to make you understand that what our curriculum design should go, quickly I will go through how this AI/ML/DL can be acceptable in a more critical applications. Examples I will show you that the changes now is accuracy versus trustworthiness. Okay, so look at this example. That is why a new area in the area of your AI/ML/DL is coming in last couple of years, which will be 2025 onwards. It will be deployment heavily will go on this, called explainability, emerging out now. So I will explain quickly 2-3 examples I will give you why the model means this model is a ML or DL. Understanding of AI/ML/DL is important for future engineering. So model understanding is absolutely critical in several domains, particularly those having high stakes in decisions. Everybody is saying use AI/ML/DL for decision making, but high stakes means for medicines, a doctor is taking, it depends on this kind of algorithm. If that algorithm is not trustworthy, it may take wrong decisions. So quickly, I will give you an example in my next slide. You see, predict wolf. This is a very common example in many research papers that I have given the reference in too. So wolf versus husky. See, this is a Siberian wolf husky. They look very close to each other. They predict wolf and also the true is also wolf. The predicts means the algorithm, ML/DL algorithm. Predict. Husky is also predicted true. So all these places, everything came correct except one place here. If you can look at here, that it is a husky, but it predicted it as a wolf. Then why it wrongly predicted the algorithm? The problem is that, very interesting, it is not the face of the wolf or the face of the husky. The face of the wolf husky so close, the person who has written the algorithm, he said that if you get confused between the wolf and husky, Generally, the Siberian wolves are available in a snowy place. So then you go to the background. Then the background, if you find snow like this, then you declare as a wolf. So here, husky is standing on the background of a snow. Then on that, the algorithm say, hey, this is a wolf, not husky, but practically it is a husky. So these kind of things called explainability. How can I explain a complex ML algorithm and find out that where it went wrong? And then I can trust what's that. So these kind of thing has to come in the teaching and research from the academia, or irrespective of any domain. For an example, so this is an input comes to a predictive model, a prediction Siberian husky, because this person has put some snows around this fellow and it was wrongly detected. So every model understanding facilitates debugging. So debugging is coming in. So similarly, another motivation is in a judgment, very critical. Yes, the judgments are biased by the race, crimes, gender, all these things. You must be reading the news across the globe, which is going on. So these judgments also sometimes get biased. News channels are sometimes mixed biased. So this prediction is biased. Race, gender are being used to make the prediction. So how will come to know from from the model that it is biased and not being neutral? So these kind of things are motivations of next irrespective of any domain. When it's vision, it may be judiciary, it may be communications, and all kind of things. So these are leads to the R&D a lot. So debugging of the models, bias detection, providing resource to affected parties, health, identity, all those things. The stakeholders are end users of the model. So stakeholders doesn't know what is inside the model, but they're using it. They're taking your model, which you have invented, using it. So loan applications, decision makers, and all. So coming quickly, the researchers and engineers who need frequently to debug the model, which will be very difficult task. Debugging model is very difficult because I'm taking it, that model like a black box. I'm using it for my problem because I have millions of data which I'm feeding to this model. I'm expecting a result, whether that result is right or wrong. And if that is wrong, debugging is not easy because it's a very complex model. So how to go forward for that? Quickly, two examples I will give, then I'll go to my third point. Inherently interpretable model versus post hoc explanations. Example is this. If you look at this, x-axis is accuracy and y-axis is interpretability. That means if I am using a linear regression kind of model, my interpretability is high. I can understand and explain you nicely, but my accuracy is low. If you can pull it down, accuracy is low. But if I go to neural networks, my accuracy is high, but my interpretation means I cannot explain you what is going on inside that model, pretty complex. But I am taking this of somebody has invented it, using it for my problem, but it goes wrong, then there will be a problem. So these are the new areas coming up that is called, in certain settings, accuracy, interpretability trade-off may exist. So these kind of things will come up in our 2025 and beyond. Achieving models understanding. Okay. So explain pre-built models in post hoc manners. Look at this. This is a black box. Somebody gives you this algorithm to you for ML, use it. And you see there are millions of neurons in the connected and the millions of data you are using to give a output decision results explainer, and this is your output results to explain. But if this malfunctions or doesn't give you the right results, how you will catch it? That is the question here. So so what expected from the students' failure students in future, what is expected from the students in future is being model agnostics. So whatever the model is given, and explainability, extremely complex areas. Now students started thinking when it will come to the BTech level, MTech level, it will be 2025 or 2024 onwards. That means I can able to explain the existing model which is given to me for accurate decision, and this is the input. This is in the black box which I showed in the previous slide. My decision is correct. Then all these AI ML model, which Professor very nicely explained, the spreadsheet will be more accepted, more used by the company. It will happen one day. So not restricted to specific models, study models that you don't have any access to. So these kind of things will happen. So now I will quickly go to the third, what the summary of these things, that what is the expectations from the industry in future, irrespective of any domain, any areas, looking at AI, ML, GL, like it will be a part of every areas, as both of them said. The explainability of the machine learning models is critical for large-scale adoption of machine learning models in high-stakes applications such as medicines, driverless vehicles, criminal justice, etc. This explainability has to come in for give you the trustworthiness. It also has a lots of additional value of being able to help practitioners debug models and improve the performance. So this is improve the performance and all things will come in. And explanation is anything that makes the machine learning model interpretable to human beings interacting with it. So with this, I will be now new topics which will come up is post hoc explanations are methods that try to explain a model after it has been built. That means if you are built a model for your ML, TL, it has to be explainable, which is very complex. Often model agnostic, which means it comes up with the explanation even without having access whatever inside the ML model. You will not be allowed to see what is inside because that is proprietary of the company. But you have to say it is accurate. How will do that? On the top of that, you have to explanatory this explainability kind of algorithms we have to think of into our teaching, research, make our students ready for the next industry's need to make them all the critical machines. So now, what next? How we'll build? It's not an easy job. How to build a R&D based curriculum? It's a very interesting and challenging. I will tell you some experiments we did, and we have some good results, but we should not sit quiet. We have to work more and more harder, long way to go. I'll take 3 minutes to finish this. Engineering institutes should plan to build students to face the R&D challenges, which I explained you in my previous slide. What are the R&D challenges coming in futuristic 2025 and beyond? And the students should have a fundamentals clear, domains clear, interdisciplinary, because there are computer science, electronics, biology, and chemistry, all are becoming interdisciplinary, and research, innovation, which I explained to you, development, after doing the research, you have to develop things, testing, reliability, cost, etc. Plus, there you have given a plus here. You see, these are the all academic things. I have to also build them fearless because they have to do R&D. They shouldn't be scared of failures. Fearless, mentally strong, because there is many times people go to the feeling sad why it's not happening. So they have to be mentally strong, ethical, humble, and healthy. So you see, this is the expectation from the academia. This blue color is the academic part, and this orange color is their personal skills. Okay, and I have put dot. I can, my colleagues can add. So, but the ICT industry makes products which has again same thing: be efficient, low cost, reliable, durable, all dot etc. Look at the similarity. Both ICT industry and the academia, they have a lot of similarities as the requirement is concerned. So the interesting part is they have one strong bonding. One, that is fundamental similarity between ICT institute and industry is majority of the time we mold brains for better efficiencies. We mold the brains which are coming out of the school class 12 and mold them to ready for the industry. And you, after taking of them, you mold for your lifetime, next 25 years, 30 years to give the product for the citizens. So we both in the same game. That means that molding the brains for better efficiency, but the starting point of the brain molding up to R&D is academia. Ours is the starting from academia. It merges smoothly to the industry, and industry take over from there and goes forward. So this part, the starting point to the merging into the industry, we need to think. So let me quickly go through within 2 minutes, 2 slides. So the first year, 2 semester, you can add to it, you can ask me questions. First, the fundamentals has to be strong because the industry is changing so fast, 1.5 years, 100% change of a product. If somebody's fundamental is not strong, he cannot visualize, or he will be shaky, because like a house foundations. So those foundations are maths, programming, plus electronics and physics, problem solving. It's related to that. What is ICT and how it influences the life and ecosystem? Because they're first year students, 17 years old. And biology, don't teach them biology, because computer science, you see, from there, I don't know who has put the adverse mentality towards biology. Biology is such an interesting subject. So you make them interesting by bioinformatics, the neuron understanding, communication and all. And go to villages or city to visualize, or I have been given a slash at here, go to villages or city to visualize engineering problems. Send them in the vacation, go to village and spend some time, or the city or urban area, go to the hospitals, go and find out in the BBMP what is the challenges they're facing for clearing the lot of problems. So like that. So in the first year, 2 years, they should, but the fundamentals has to be clear in this problem solving, maths and all. And second part is, if possible, unlearn multiple choice attitude. That is another thing. 3 years they have been taught only multiple choice. Reject the 2 negatives first, then the choice after the 2 correct, which one is the more correct. Okay. So this has to be unlearned. Why? Because learn proofs. If you don't know stepwise how to prove, R&D doing will be difficult, because stepwise you have to prove one by one concept to tell that, hey, I am correct in this place and wrong in this place. Physical games. Physical, I didn't write only games because games will take to game theory and all, so I made it physical. Increase the team spirit, because you friends together you play. Increase the team spirit needed. In R&D, your team spirit is extremely important. Alone, we cannot do anything anymore because those days are gone. Get rid of, if you lose the game, tomorrow you plan and win the game. So first day losing will be not the end of your life. So you know that you get rid of fear of failures. So games help you 3 things. 1, team spirit. 2, get rid of failures, which I told you in the starting R&D requirement, and stay fit, physically fit. And mental stability, yoga or games or meditation. Somewhere R&D is needs a very stable thought process and life. Detoxic from unwanted information. Continue this till the end of their career, whatever it may be. Detoxic. A lot of unwanted information is coming in, which disturbs them. So these are the things together should be started from the first year. Quickly, I'll come to the second year, because you asked me for the R&D, what are your plans for 2025 onwards, with looking at the industry's requirement. Again, the fundamentals, second year, and basics of AI, ML, math, MLDN and beyond, and domain subjects should sneak in here after the fundamentals slowly. Our domain can 1 or 2 subjects you can do. Labs, this is very important. Ask them to think about or give them a good problem to solve in fully or partially. Big problem, they cannot complete it in 1 semester. Give them 2 semesters to solve it, which they might have visualized in urban and village visits. Give them independence, let them solve using the concepts which you have taught. Increase the confidence. This increases their confidence. Very important. Increase the confidence of the student. Third year, 5th and 6th semester, 5th semester domain subjects related, all those things. And also the 6th semester, some domain subjects. But here comes in the real things which I wanted to implant into our thought process, is that which we have tested. And I'll tell you, during the teaching, we have been done from the school till the engineering path. All the whys are being correct, explained very nicely by our professor. Wonderfully, I am really salutes them. But the one thing we miss majority of the time is that during teaching, tune the brain not only on why, but also why not. That means you explain a problem, then ask them to think what will be its next solution. Then they will come as why not means a new idea. They will come and tell you, sir, these are the new idea I've thought. Is it correct? Then you friendly way interact with them. This is needed. Thesis will be the great ball changer for Indian R&D from the academia. That means don't only why is extremely important, but why not bring in. That means thought process inside the class to bring to tune, or in the labs. Well tested. I have 2008 onwards, I have tested this for 6-7 years in class silently without telling the students. And later on, I took it to the R&D. 10 years, they have been coding or doing a lot of R&D works, great companies like Samsung's or other like our SAP Lab. Rate is above 80%. They are gold mine, brilliant brains in the industry and the academia coming in. But only thing is that we have to inculcate in the teaching or in the labs this why not idea for R&D. So encourage the students to select the domain and interest. Another thing, we as a professors, we should always encourage our students. They may not be knowing very basics, very fundamentals. You may get annoyed inside, but don't show it to them, because they are at the starting of their career. They will break down. They will not go to the research, only they will coding and go development and testing. They will do. So please encourage them. Never, whatever anger you have, let us suppress it inside on the face, show them a smiling face. Oh, you have thought well, let us try this. Give an independent mental space to the student to start thinking, and lab space. Two space you have to give, independent mental space. Don't do spoon feeding always. Bring them to a place, leave them, let them think, mental space. And lab space, let them sit in a lab, discuss with their friends or you, and go ahead. So this is a very important, should start from third year. And then to create a good research blended mind with development needs some more time after BTech. That is because majority of the BTech courses are broad by design. To create a good research blended mind with development needs little more time after 4 years, because till 4 years, less than 4 years, they are only busy with the more broad by design. These are the universities have done that, because if you make it very narrow, that has advantages and disadvantages. And if you make it very broad, that has also advantages and disadvantages. So you have to play between that. And fourth year, 7 and 8 semester, domain and interdisciplinary subjects. Bring in interdisciplinary research and development blended large projects. Already you have started teaching them in the class what is research. Ask them what is your interest areas and slowly give them. And economics, finance, strategy, entrepreneurship, technical writing, anyone I have made some backslash in between, you start introducing into that. 5th semester, 9th, and because I am talking about IEMT, integrated MTech, into 5 BTech plus MTech, 5 years program or 2 years MTech programs, you can blend it here. Domain specific or interdisciplinary courses, research and development problems, paper and patent writing. This is extremely important. What I felt from starting from any institute in this country, people are very nice, knowledgeable, but they don't want to write. And why scared? Again, fear of that professor will say something, I have not written well. Don't worry, write. Let the professor say whatever they want, but you don't just listen good things what they're selling and correct yourself and again go back to them. Domain specific and research development. If you don't write, outside world will not come to know what you have invented. Faculty can collaborate with the industry and government for the problem. This is a very, very important, which we are calling it as a sabbatical or reverse sabbatical. So gone from industry to academia or academic industry. And 10th semester is important when they're graduating out. It may be 8th semester in BTech, internship in industry on R&D problem, because 95% goes to the industry. This is very, industry is sitting, R&D industry is sitting on a pile of research problems. Academia also have research problems, but we get it from our literature survey, which will happen after 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years. But industry is sitting on a down the line 6 months required, down the line 1 year I required this has to be solved. So they are also sitting on a lot of problems. So if they can collaborate, wonderful things. 95% ultimately our students goes there. Join in-depth R&D projects between academia and industry can start from 9th semester or maybe on the 7th semester in BTech of 4 years or 5 years from 9th semester. So these are the plan. And in summary, this is my last slide. R&D related teaching and project must in academia. It has to be must in academia, because that is the last link when I'm leaving academia and going for a job. If I'm not trained at here, I'll feel shaky in industry. I will not be strong enough. So this has to happen in academia before they leave academia. Need of industry and government, according to the need of industry and dynamics of industry and the government. Funding needed for labs to make the students and faculty to work. A lot of funding needed, but the faculty has to be careful. Funding philosophies are changing as government and industry is concerned, and very rapidly changing. Sabbatical needed from both the sides, academia to industry and vice versa. Deep constructive thoughts needed to shape the brains for better R&D by leveraging the huge potential of Indian brains to solve thousands of problems in India and the world. Deep and constructive thoughts, very constructive. We cannot say a student that you don't know this anytime in his career, because we are building him. Student, I'm talking about student, I'm not talking about employees. We are building him, we are nurturing him. We have to, like a small tree, we give water every day and give some manure every day to grow him. We have to grow them, and with a lot of affection. Industry and government are citizen driven. Please keep it in mind. Industry and government are citizen driven. Citizen wants this, industry has to deliver, government has to deliver. They have no other option, because the business lies there and policies lies there, both there. Faculty has to be ready for change attitude to embrace new areas, because if industry says go in these areas or the government says this area, you yourself sees, faculty says, hey, this is a new area coming in and I should change myself. In my 18 years, I have changed 6 areas. Every 2.5 years or 3 years, changed completely. And fundamentals helps to change. You are also doing, I'm not saying no, all of us are doing. But the thing is, but our mentally should be ready for this, because it's not easy for the professors to change an area. So it is easy to say, but it's not easy. So we have to be very mentally strong also as a professor to go ahead. So thank you very much for giving me this, for your attention. And I am over to Dr. Day, and after that I will introduce Dr. Day.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for sharing your insights on R&D model and ICT education in India. Also emphasizing on the explainability component of AI and ML model and make them trustworthy for the stakeholders using them. And in fact, you also focused on how students should build their professional and socio-emotional skills to be industry ready. So I'm definitely sure that for most of what you have said had a significant impact of many of us here on this session. And they would go back with some points to ponder, especially for our friends from academia. So with this, I would give the virtual podium back to you to introduce next speaker, Dr. Aloknath Dey. Over to you, Professor Debrata, sir.
Thank you, Chengappa, for your quick feedback, and appreciate that. And it is my honor and pleasure to introduce Dr. Aloknath Dey. He's the Corporate Vice President and the Chief Technology Officer, CTO of Samsung R&D India, Bangalore. And Dr. Dey has over 30 years of industrial and research experiences, including Bell and Nortel, Hughes, and ST Ericsson, where he was a country director. And he has visiting professors at IIT Roorkee, IIT Delhi. He holds BTech from IIT Kharagpur from Computer Science Department, and ME from Indian Institute of Science, and PhD from McGill University in Montreal, Canada. Dr. Dey is a recipient of very prestigious Alexander Graham Bell Prize in Canada for his doctoral research. He has received numerous awards, including IEEE Memorial Awards for Distinguished Contribution in Electronics and Communication. He received IDC Insights Award for Innovation in Telecom, and Genove Award from Technical Role Model in 2015, and Entrepreneurship of the Year 2016 awards, and ASCOM Award from Tech Leader of the Year 2019, and many others awards. He is also considered one of the most influential CIO CTO of India. He is a senior member of IEEE, fellow of IIET, and he has received very prestigious award from India that is called Fellow of Indian National Academy of Engineers, INE, Fellow INE. And he has been in IEEE for last 26 years. Okay. And as a CTO, he is responsible for establishing and nurturing 3 COEs, Center for Excellence. One is 5G, Artificial Intelligence, and IoT. Over last 9 years, I think it's 10 years, in Samsung, he has established in-house innovation process, and he himself was filed and granted 25 plus patents as a co-inventors. He drove Samsung to be one of the highest patent filer grantor in India, and have received National IP Award for this achievement, huge achievement, 2015 and 2018 from Government of India, and CIA Industry IP Award 2017. He has enormous potentially driven the Samsung for this kind of height within a very short period with respect to IP and all. And he's very well known across the country. He was in the Prime Minister's Fellowships Advisory Committee of the India, and he has multiple more hours in this regard. So I request Dr. Aloknath Dey to present his talk. Thank you, and over to Dr. Dey.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. You can see it and you can hear me. Thank you, Professor Das, for your kind introduction, and also bringing out very detailed curriculum. I was sitting and seeing, if I had to go back to university, how will you take it step by step in a new way of this R&D growth, and how do you bring this university and industry together to do things? So I will be brief, because when academia works and does a lot, then industry has to do less, because people are much more ready. So I would also take lesser time, and also there is a lot of questions that are for Professor Sadagopan, so I would like some interactions at the end. So let me take maybe 15, 20 minutes to brief what I wanted to highlight. So when we talk about students' career, education is one part, and that they get that through the universities. Then they build skills. Either they have put their own time, online, otherwise, peer level. They build skills, and as they join us, they build more and more and more. And then they have to be encapsulated by a vision, whether their visions, company visions, senior people's visions. But if it is not aligned well, career doesn't grow. Just by knowing and just by applying here and there, it would not take us to the right directions. So with that thought process, I wanted to talk about when people join from campus to corporate. And when I say corporate, it can be an R&D center, it can be a startup, it can be a bigger organizations. What do the industry expect? And if we have to look a little bit a longer time frame, then how does it look like? So first of all, and I'm not going to be typify it, things are changing quite a lot, but in the university, the orders are paper publications, then patent, and I can see these days a lot of things are growing, and then some kind of prototype, proof of concept. Professor Das talked about directly going into product. So that's a recent change, and that's nice. But this is the typical way things happen. In industry, it's just opposite. We talk about product. If it's not getting commercialized by certain times, whatever you do, you publish, you patent, it's not sufficient. You cannot grow in the organization just by doing that, unless it's a pure R&D part of it. But typically, you need to bring them in the product context. So therefore, you can see a little bit of contradictions. And many a time I say that university industry interactions, even at the professor's level or the senior level, why it doesn't become always successful? Because of such inherent contradictions. And if the agent on both sides are not able to deal with it, it will fail because the priorities are different. Now let's assume we fix that and people join us. You do in the university, the students do exploration driven innovations. There are also a lot of techniques that they build. But here, they are going to be building technologies. So again, there is a subtle difference between a methods, techniques, exploration of an area versus an outcome driven innovations. That goal first and then do backward and then do whatever is necessary. It's not because you like to do something. However, I must say that industries are also innovating. If you look into globally, IBM's patent, Samsung holds it second in US patents. And even in India, we have shown leaderships, as Professor Das was mentioning, we've been able to do quite a lot in terms of creating intellectual property. Question is, how do you do this as a systematic method? It is not like it is few people's prerogative. 2011, I started doing with few people who have done in the previous organizations their patent, and they were the seeds. But then my goal was to massify it and make sure the innovation is everybody's bread and butter. Every step of things, you can bring that culture and inculcations. In fact, on 24th June in NASCOM, this is where we as a council started a first engineering R&D showcase and awards. And I will be talking also about how to make this winning culture, innovation culture, how do you inculcate that? So in the organizations, product, or service, or consumer experience, you get obsessed by that, whatever you are working, doesn't matter what it is. But once you have been given a charter, then you channelize all the energies into these directions. So this is a change, as I say, from campus to corporate. And I'm not mentioning some of the nice things Professor Das mentioned, ethical transactions, being humble, healthy. These are something that we expect, because if you are not fit, how can you go to the next step? So now let me tell you a little bit. So first is campus to corporate transition part of it. Then there are business understanding. People have to learn how is the business decomposed, and day by day, it is becoming very important. How do you even design your business? And some of the companies are doing well, not because they have inherent technologies, but even innovations in the business models itself is becoming interesting, and decomposition is happening nicely. It's like API or interfaces, not just software level. Like, let me give you an example of Open RAN. We were having 2 days back a 6 hours long workshop, and effectively, core to RAN to devices, and we talk about edge computing, fog computing, but even inside RAN, we are talking about RU, radio units, baseband units decomposed into distributed and centralized. So this is how we are defining business and utilizing open source and many other things. So in the process, when you make it bigger, you also see supply chain redefinitions, starting from materials to products to manufacturing to supply to the end. And there is a lot of innovations that are happening in this digitization world. It all COVID has kind of accelerated. And I always tell people, when they say, what's the importance of digital transformations? I try to tell them simply, just think of COVID instead of 2020. Had it come in India 2010, what would have happened? We would have been completely crippled, because all these last 10 years, whether it is Aadhaar proliferations, UPI, all kinds of fintech that has come, tells it that, how to make it right. And we also saw the supply chain fiasco a little bit when this hit. And we are trying to correct, because this is the way you have to do business. Now, why I'm mentioning all of this, that as students join from institute to these are some things that they learn. Alongside user experience, deeper understanding, design thinking, what would be required by the users, this psychology, this detailing is absolutely required to make a great product. We all know Steve Jobs stories, but there are many such people who have been able to define what would be the end user's requirements and do it. And in Samsung, I've been, pushing this envelope quite a lot in last 10 years. It was just pure development, but how do you bring research to development? How do you do not only flat development, but also a kind of advanced development like a platform, a framework? Or if you have developed something, how can you take from developed product to commercialization in the market? So I'm encouraging all of the people not to do the pure development, but to do one additional component, thereby they become, bring that additional value. And last point is make versus buy. It is not the world anymore that you can build anything and everything and all have to be done in-house. You decide to partner with startups, you decide to partner with bigger other companies, and these decisions of what needs to happen inside and what has to happen outside is also very, very interesting. And with all of these in the lockdown time, I just put that, we saw that certain products were much more interesting, like dumbbells and vitamin C gummies. The power of data analytics, looking into that, what is becoming more important to people and being able to supply them right way. The home office, the home gym, the robo assistant, it all became very, very vital during this lockdown time. We saw that. So anyway, I think what I wanted to bring in this slide is the business understanding part of it. Now I'll go a little quickly now that you have understood. I brought this from World Economic Forum, that how the skills are getting disrupted. This side is 2015 to 20, as you can see, the changes that has happened. And these are some of the things that are coming up: mobility, basic infrastructure, financial services. The disruptions are much more than, let's say, health and media entertainment. Again, this is a 2 years back kind of report. Things are also changing very fast. You see, countries like Italy, India, the disruptions are much more than, let's say, Japan and Australia. So if the students are here and if you are trying to cope up with the ecosystem, with the changes outside, they have to be much more agile than some of the other countries. Reason could be anything, that they have changed enough before that possibly it's a lower change. But nonetheless, at this time, this is what people have to go through. Let me put it this again from World Economic Forum. This is a Future of Jobs report, 15 to 20. As you can see here, you know, some of the things, complex problem solving was first item and it stays as first item. But critical thinking has moved from 4th positions in 15 to 2nd positions. Creativity from 10th positions to 3rd position. Some of the skills that were important, like negotiations, 5th positions, has kind of dropped in a relative terms. Okay, maybe absolute terms I'm not commenting. And then things like that, emotional intelligence, the 6th item, the cognitive flexibility, how you are mentally adaptable. The thing that you thought should happen may not have happened. And therefore, what do you do next? Do you get puzzled or do you find a new path? So this emotional intelligence, the judgment and decision-making, cognitive flexibility, these kinds of skills are much more coming up for the future. Now, this is the slide. I just wanted to put the point that this is what we see in many newspapers. Top 5 IT companies cut hiring, AI automation taking root. These are part of the problems, challenges. All these 5 slides that I talked so far is about all these transitions that are happening, the challenges that are coming, and it's a fact. But then there are many more things we can do. And now I talk about the solutioning part. So first of all, ICT is all pervasive. And if you are talking about skills, we should not hold people to few sectors. There are many sectors that are in dire need of people with skills. So if could be cross-disciplinary or otherwise with a vertical, people could relate on agriculture, on chemical industries, on hospitality, on constructions. And some of the smart people, even with a lesser, let's say, domain knowledge, but with a little bit of vertical knowledge, they are moving to these verticals. And there are ample opportunities there, lesser people than the jobs. So therefore, I again encourage people to look into all kinds of verticals that are growing. Here it shows after COVID how they are recovering. So if it's a 4th year, 5th year students, you know, then maybe the top part, stage 1 is very important, right? Because you are almost ready to go into the market. Whereas if you are 1st year, 2nd year, then maybe the middle part, 2nd year students. By the time you graduate, things will settle down and you will have the need. Or if you are joining or maybe very early on, could be the stage 3. So I think the staging of people, each batch of students that are coming out should understand what will happen 3 years down the road with the predictions. And they should not just follow their seniors and go in the same directions. Then they land up into the competitions and not having opportunities. And some of the other verticals are going to be empty. I would not get into this, but I wanted to highlight that electronics are going everywhere. Devices are coming, smart devices, wearables, foldables. There is edge computing, there is cloud computing. Lot of services are coming. It is not about just the hardware and electronics, but software wise, real-time interactive game with 5G that is coming. This latency being less, the throughput being high. You can have your radiological displays and transmissions of even X-ray with a high resolution quality, remote support, ubiquitous healthcare. Ultra HD, which is now in the TV, can come into the mobile with video streaming. And lots of smart map, navigations, ad hoc communications, when we need in disaster time the communication most, I think the poles are down. And therefore, the question is, how do you form with an UAV, HAPS, an ad hoc network very quickly to save some lives around the places that are affected? I think these are very, very interesting things, lots of opportunities, but people need to be prepared to tap onto that and get into this direction. Again, the importance of data analytics, not going into details, just put an airline business. You see reservation history and lots of call centers on the top. You have an individual with the frequent flyers, email, web, mobile. You have his social data, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and you could use that, or maybe integrate the green part, third-party data and build it. So the data design, the data platform, the data analytics, the visualizations for all the businesses are very, very, very critical. AI, we talked about it. And let me just highlight, I think Professor Das highlighted one point, that is, as we are moving from 5G to beyond 5G to 6G, that is becoming very important, is the explainable AI, the XAI we call it. And this combined with some of the things in factories, for example, if I take an example, not just in the data intelligence part that I gave examples, the sensory data that is there, audio analysis you can do. You have all these image processing, human pose predictions. At the end, today we are asking some machines, robos, for some assistance. But also, I think in future, Kobo's decision will come. And shall I help you with this task and that task? The software bot that are coming, it can help us in multiple ways when we are puzzled in the decision making. But I think we have to make it very human centric so that it is more assistive than dictative. That is the desire of the people. And another just view, not to scare anybody, but this is going to be reality. I mean, it is 2030, 2035, but we have to learn to collaborate human machines in a very nice way. And in fact, in DST yesterday, we had our 1-year anniversary in IIT Delhi. We have started, Professor Saha, collaborative robotics as a Section 8 company, and I'm in the governing council board there. And we just inaugurated that last year and had the anniversary yesterday. So it is about, your rehabilitations. It's about medical directions, that how human and robots or machines can interact, collaborate. This should be a future, and I think people in due course have to learn, not just in the workplace, but also in the society. This should be a commonplace. And we have seen a lot of robotic process automations and other things. But when I ask young people, they're not too worried. They are not looking for this. They're very excited about such RPA, AI, IoT, and how to take it to the next steps. It might disrupt some of the existing jobs, but it creates many more in the other directions. And I have a list of things that could be done in a newer way. So with that, I'll come to just the last segment of it to highlight that many people, they have to learn these things. It's a continuous learning, whether it is in the university or open online, hybrid learning, blended learning. We're going to have a session with IICT chairman the next week to have this blended learning, talking about it and how, even at the university level, with many of those platforms like edX and Coursera and many others, Udemy, how do you take it? And, Professor Sadagopan talked about SIAM and our NPTEL. How do you integrate all of this and then help people to learn at their own pace? This is something very important to make it happen. And I'll conclude with this last 2 slides. This is picked up from Holon IQ, and I would not go through it, but it's very interesting. That's why I brought in. If you see on the left side, there are 5 colors. These are kind of drivers. Education as usual. There will be a set of people who would like to keep it the same way. Then the green is regional rising. You know, the government, state governments, people, forums, associations are driving. Global giants, big companies, Byju's, or companies like Microsoft, who are providing these platforms or giving the education content, how are they going to drive? Peer-to-peer, forget the matter, but if everybody starts to learn from each other, then things can change. And then last one is the Robo Revolution. You know, robo's entry into this whole game, machine's entry, and how does that disrupt? So these 5 forces will act on their own way. You know, they're kind of independent. Not fully independent, but quite independent. And so I will take it just one example to explain. So let's say the third one, learning model. So learning model has got 4, theoretical on the left side and practical on the right side, on campus and online, group and individual on the other extreme, and instructor-led to self-paced. In all of these, how does it work? So blue's role, education as usual. This is like driver. And as you can see on the right side, a lot of reds are coming, which means if peer-to-peer starts to play a very solid role, then it will become practical, online, individual, self-paced. But if somehow, you know, the green plays a role or blue plays a role, then it can stay on the left-hand side more. And it's not always the same color is on the right side. For example, the learning model, you can see reds. But if you go the last, role of technology, then you see a lot of gray, which means Robo Revolutions will decide how things happen in leading the way, in intelligence power, in, you know, borderless data and things like that. So with that, I will leave it here. And if you are interested, please look into it. It's quite interesting and give some insight into that. So to conclude, I would just say that at the corporate level, at the employability skills, we see this 10 things that people are saying in some way or the other, but just to cluster them, the red cluster talks about how are you self-motivated, using your own initiative, some kind of skills for organizations, your ability to learn, adapt, that's your red color. Then second part of it, 5, 6, 7, 8 is more about your interpersonal skills, the teamwork, the negotiation skills. Diversity is becoming very, very important. So how do you value that? So this is your second clusters. And then third clusters, the top 2 in the problem solving skills and IT numeracy skills. This is in a broader sense, not just the engineering skills, but this is how the society will be driven. And I have already talked about some of those disruptions in AI, IoT, 5G, blockchain with the distributed systems that are happening and their implications that will come. So yes, students, as they join, they have to learn a little bit of company culture, the style of it, the business understanding, and then how the transition is happening globally in technology, how the skill priorities are changing, what are the learning methodologies. With all of these, and with a good understanding of what you are targeting to build in 3 years, 5 years, when you set your goal, whether as you join or as you are in the organizations in 5 years, 10 years, you should be able to look into that. So with that, I will conclude and just say, you know, it's an open question. If you have to say thank you in 5 years down the road, and if you have manufactured these pieces, would you put this together, or do you ask a machine to put it for you, searching all these alphabets to say thank you?
Thank you, Dr. De. Nice talk, and particularly the Vision 2030 and also the some of the challenges in 5G, robo environment, all those IoTs based things. Thank you very much. Very nice talk. So shall I hand over to you? So Professor Dr. De?
Yes, I think, Chengappa will ask the questions and we can be on the floor so that, I think Professor Sadagopan's lots of questions are there. So I don't know how much time, but if all of the people are still there, we'd love to take it and we don't mind exceeding a bit of time to answer them. So Chengappa, over to you.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, sir. And definitely, I think that the participants are waiting for their questions to be answered. So I would start with some of the initial questions that we have received on the chat window while Professor Sadagopan was addressing us. So the first question goes like, what is the challenge for physical institutes considering a large growth of affordable and very good quality of education is available online?
Okay, excellent question. Nobody has a clear answer because it is evolving very fast. I think what happened was COVID made Zoom University possible. Nobody thought that things will work, so things work very well. But at the same time, okay, my take is very simple. That e-commerce has come, and it is not that the stores are disappearing. But what happens is you actually find that you do a good mix of these two. For certain things, you kind of go to the e-commerce site and decide and go buy from the real store. For certain things, you first buy from the real store. Afterward, repeat orders, you go to this one. So in a sense, every store is also having a e-store. And a lot of e-store companies are also coming with physical store. Apple has a physical store. Tomorrow, Google is starting their physical store in New York City, not very far from Apple store. Okay, Microsoft has been talking of a store. Okay, so what I'm saying is real store and e-com are kind of blending each other, complementing each other. I think that there is a lot of efficiency to be gained from online learning, even for regular courses. I don't think that we really have to struggle so much every time for every lecture or the 45 lecture hour course for a full course for every course. Okay, so I think even regular teaching will start using certain amount of online. And online completely also gets very boring, so they also want the social dynamics. So online would also use some amount of face-to-face. I think in some courses it could be 10 to 90, in some other courses it could be 90 to 10. But it is all going to be a combination of these two. And that would be my take. In the sense both will peacefully coexist. Both are needed, each complements the other. I do hope that you got the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And again, our next question is to you from Mr. Rajesh. It goes like, what are the challenges for ECE courses in future? Do we get back the demand for this course in future?
Okay, you see, ECE course will always be in demand. Okay, this is what is called a green. Okay, it's the evergreen area. But what happens is that, you see, you can't say that, remember that, when we all went to school, the first computer I touched was actually not even a digital computer. 1966, it was an analog computer, right? So I can't say that, look, I will continue to keep using that. You have to change because, vacuum tubes come and go, right? So what happened, electronics has evolved, electronics has changed. And electronics would change even further. I'm a great fan of what is called foldable electronics, right? So I always believe that, can you have, you go to a lecture, you take your handkerchief, a big kerchief, put it on a wall, and then that becomes the screen, So things like that. So what I'm saying is it's going to be a very interesting evolution, right? And I think as long as electronics is evolving along with the changing consumer demands, you will continue to be in demand. But if you say that, look, you will keep doing the electronics of today for the next 30 years, you are going to be in trouble. Okay? Adapt and you will have no problem. ECE will continue to be alive and kicking a great area for many, many decades. That's my take. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And again, during the course of your talk, you did emphasize on MCA. And the next question is on addressing the same. So it's from Dr. Sujata, who likes to know that how do you see the future of MCA program in India and your opinion on current 2 years of MCA program? And again, in line to that, you are also mentioning that we need to reduce the gap between IITs and other academic institutions. So do you see a role that this program being a key differentiator there? And if so, how we can leverage on it? So this is a follow-up question from my side.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So MCA is a great program, but you see what happened is, remember it was put up together in 1982. So what is actually happening is it has been revised, but not major revision. But I think people have to revisit, and suddenly IICT took a decision to make it from 3 years to 2 years. Okay, so what happens is what gets cut, what is one has to see. One is constantly you have to learn and unlearn. That is one part of it. The second part of it is the software production has changed. And, I was mentioning in my talk, instead of cooking the way in which my mother was cooking and the way in which today, MTR cooking. So software is becoming like MTR today. You go and get some microservices assembled together, give it to your cloud service provider to do the testing and integration and then launch it. Okay. So I think MCA program should also imbibe this new way of software production. Okay. So that is something which it has to be done. And third, I think what happens is that the reason why MCA was successful was when it was put together, some selected universities were selected, certain departments of the government, certain CSIR labs, certain institutes were all there. And we created the curriculum together so that it makes sense. So I think it is high time, maybe NASCOM or somebody should take the lead, and maybe Dr. Alok, they actually from other bodies like IESA can take the lead. I think industry and academia should come together and then put out a new. I think just as we have rebranded into 2-year MCA, we also need to redo the entire curriculum and make it far more relevant for the day. Otherwise, if we keep teaching the same thing, my feeling is I'm afraid that MCA is going to be imminently going towards its extinction. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your insights on those lines, sir. So next is a question from Professor Raja Rao. The question goes like, can you give inputs on convergence of technologies as we go to IoT and machine autonomy?
Okay, you see, it's a kind of little longer one, so I probably may not be able to do justice. But you see, you think about it like this, See, initially when we networked computers, okay, we actually networked computers, and email was started basically because system administrators have to keep track because people are doing what is called telnet and remote login. Okay, so email was basically for system administrators to ensure that machines are up and running, resources are allocated. But somewhere along, human beings got in and started some creative use of it. So computer communication became less of importance and human to human communication became far more important. And then little later, Google came and search changed the whole thing because people are actually using it for something very productive. And then something called Facebook came, and then social media started. So what started off as a computer to communication became a great human communication device. Now, put the devices, the so-called thing, the Internet of Things, IoT. So you are actually now connecting computers, connecting human beings, and connecting things. So this is just, when the initial computer, I still was there, Purdue, that the master thesis was to be able to connect completely two PDP-11 machines. Same manufacturer, identical machines, identical operating system. The fact that you can share the resources seamlessly across two machines was actually a master's project. But today, you take a machine and turn it on, the machine is in the net, right? So things have changed so much, right? But what happened, it takes time. So I really don't know what are the great things will happen when the things, computers and human beings are connected together. Okay, I think it is going to be exciting, and I think we need to keep that vision. And as long as we keep that vision in mind, I'm sure there is going to be opportunities for great education, great companies, great products, and great patents. I'll stop there, otherwise it will go on. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, sir. The next question is to Professor Debrata Das. It's from Dr. Ambar Bajpai. Sir, the question goes like, after effect of pandemic, as academia suffering from funding, in particular developing countries, how researchers should proceed for funds required to develop labs and product developments, trigger point to attract RAPA for projects with the lack of fund and salaries. That seems to be a big challenge for us, and how do we address it?
Yeah, I can understand this because this is a question across the country now, or many developing countries also. So the major thing is that if your project has any POC, proof of concepts, with respect to some of those list of requirements given by the different agencies, so they're ready to give funds. But particularly if you go to some of the governments, I will say, and companies also there. So the DSTs and also they have a lot of funding for different areas. ACRBs, Science Engineering Research Boards, there are around 10 schemes. Under the 10 schemes, there are different verticals for funding. But while applying, you have to most likely share mention your prior experiences or present experiences in that areas, plus any deployed projects you have done. That then there is a high probability of getting funding is there from this kind of agencies. And then state government has some funding, and also AICT has also funding for supports. And plus industries, if you have of your areas, they are also sponsoring projects of interest. These are the ways. It is a challenging now because of the less funds than the previous years. I agree for that, but these are the ways where people are getting funds. Still today, people are getting funds.
But you strongly recommend that having a POC would definitely increase the chance for funding.
In the proposal, one has to write that. I have at the end, not only if you write only, I have only published because people are probability is less nowadays.
Thank you for sharing that insight, sir. And again, the next question is to you by Mr. Madhav Rao. The question goes like, do you think institutes should be open to accept partial credits earned by students from other institutes or online education?
Accepting the partial credits and all, this is a very larger issues, and it needs a lot of discussions. But online education, I can talk about, which has already Professor Sadagoppan has already addressed. It will be in the hybrid mode. However, the online education will be more acceptable if the technology platform improves. For an example, say if there are 40 students in my class in a physical mode, when we teach, we look at the students, and looking at their eyes, we understand how much things have gone in or not gone in. Then we ask questions, understand what has been understood, then we repeat the thing, or we start discussion. These are the huge advantage from a faculty students understanding inside the class in a physical mode, face to face. But the present online mode, if you have a very interactive class and you need a lab for explanations, so online technologies has to improve to that level. Okay, so then the online will go on in a more smoothly, which will take some time. People are working on that direction. Till that time, the students will miss the in class or in among themselves interactions to learn a subject with the faculty.
Thank you so much, sir.
So online selections will be very selective to after that. Those subjects who doesn't have a labs or not much interactive, online is maybe more successful in that regards than the other one.
All right. Yeah, thank you for sharing your views on that. The next question, probably I think Dr. Alok sir can take it, as he covered from campus to corporate and provide some perspectives on those things. The question is from AM Khan, which says that, what do you think that faculty should adapt to these changes? It's very brief. The question goes like this.
I think we talked about many different parameters. It depends on where does the faculty or the university stand, and you should take it from there. If it is more like you need the labs and things, then you have to find a way to grow there. If you think the students' attractions are lesser, then it's a kind of introspection. It's too broad a question to respond to that. Maybe if you have other specific pointers, I could take it.
No, probably, yeah, I would also encourage the participants to unmute and ask that question. So if Mr. A.M. Khan is still around, he can directly ask the questions to our panelists.
My question, yeah, I am Dr. Khan here.
Sure.
My question was what the fact, see, the trends are changing. Okay, now we talked of change in curriculum, we talked of changing the student attitude, how the industry is changing, how technology is changing. With all this changing environment, the faculty, I as a professor or I as a teacher, I also need to adapt to all these changes. So how technology can help me, or what,
Okay.
how fast can I adapt to these changes is my point there.
Sure. So I think, the first step of any change, that the way we say it, is basically mind to accept that these changes are inevitable, or it is good for the students or good for the organization. So kind of clarity on why we need those changes, or do we need those changes. I think that's a first step. And then second step is an adaptive mind, because, for example, some people could say that even after COVID gone, completely classroom training, right? So if you try to go back to 100%, then it may not work. I mean, it may be at 75, 25, and each university would have a different points. So I believe, the openness to look into why the changes and what is the wave, and pegging at a right point would be very, very helpful into that, whether it is blended learning, whether it is mentoring and the students, or if the industry, as I explained, few of the key attributes, how it is changing when you are defining, for example, an assignment. If those skill sets of 20 and 25 are coming up, can I build an assignment that the assignment that I gave before may not be exciting enough or right directions? So would we be able to change? When you define in lab certain projects, that initiative to think that we need to move towards that, and defining all the deliveries of content, assignments, projects would be very, very helpful. That's all I can say for the time being.
Thank you, sir. The next question probably would be more towards Professor Sadagopan, sir, as he also covered this in his talk. It's addressing a particular subject, like why Indian institutes are so much behind in world rankings like US, even if we have good quality of education and R&D in the institutions like IIT, IIIT, and ISC.
Okay. So thank you. There are two parts to the answer. One part of it, just go and look up a Facebook post by Professor Ram Gopal Rao of IIT Delhi, where he has given a fairly detailed answer. To just quote one thing, what he has done is he has taken the top 100 ranks, and he has taken the two institutes in India and compared with the 50th rank, and then essentially showed that because a lot of parameters are subjective parameters, they ask the employers, etc., and because the Indian institutes are still not known every time, right? So obviously they were suffering. And the second thing was that while the other institute, which had the 50th rank, had the kind of counted all the supporting academic staff also, in IITs we only give people who are the full-time faculty members. So that was unduly, so it's basically a measurement problem. That is one part of it. Second part of it has to do with scale. Let me give a number. I was teaching in 97 at Rutgers. So Rutgers has about 85,000 students, and in 1997 spring had a budget of $4.2 billion, right? So many large US institutes, MIT and Caltech are considered quite small. Caltech is 3,000, this is the smallest, and MIT is 10,000. Okay. Most Purdue, my alma mater, is 55,000. So what happens is the fact that Indian institutes like IITs until recently had 2,500 students. Now slowly some of them are becoming 6,000, 8,000. Two IITs have become 10,000. And so obviously we are extremely small. Our budgets are still hundreds of crores compared to billions of dollars. With so little investment, with such a small size, the fact that we bubble up is a mystery. It's something phenomenal. I tell you, if only somebody takes the decision, all the IITs together are considered as one system, I think our ranks will go up like anything. Right? It is something to do with this. One is a measurement process. Second thing is our scale. And luckily, I think we are changing. We are also scaling up. At least now institutes are talking of 10,000. IIT Hyderabad has been kind of planning for everything for 20,000 students. I think once that happens, we will be there. At the same time, we will also realize that these are global ranks. And there are so many large American universities, so many universities in Germany, UK, etc. They have been there for 600 years, 700 years, 400 years, 300 years, and so large and for so long. So suddenly, because there is only 100 which you can talk of the top 100, and remember there are 200 plus countries, right? So there's only so much you can do. I think Professor Balram put it very nicely. Rankings are very helpful for us to learn to improve, but we should not lose our sleep on rank.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you for summarizing that.
If I can just add
Yeah.
a little bit here, I think Professor Sadagopan very nicely put it, and all the challenges and how we should see that. But I was just looking into this recently, IIC data, the research ranking, they are 100 out of 100, and globally, and even bet many of the other global universities. So we have potential. So as we analyze it, forget the ranking part of it, but we could learn from it. And three things that have come up, which we could do, it is in little bit in our hand. Okay. One is the documentation part. Earlier, I think Professor Das also talked about many of the questions and metrics. Either we didn't spend earlier time, and that's why government put the NIRF recently for doing that, so that we have that habit and practice of that documentation and understanding metrics. The second is the international student experience, faculties. We have not grown that way, and we are still catering to our local needs. And there itself, we have a lot of demand. So, but many of those universities with 400, 500 years of presence has a very strong presence, and that mattered a lot. And this is where we score a little bit lower. And third thing, which is still in our hand, a bit of this industry university interactions, by virtue of which on the product understanding and what we talk today, many of these. So these three are in our hands. Some are subjective and some will take time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for adding to that. Thank you.
Yeah. So the next question is again from Dr. A.M. Khan, and probably I would like Professor Devrata Das to address it. The question goes like, how can we as institute put more confidence into industry to sponsor research as it is done in developed countries?
Yeah, it happens in two ways. The first, one of them is the faculty go and talk to the industry, present there and find out the problems, or the student exchange. When a student goes there, does the internships, and the information comes in to the faculty that these are the works happening, and faculty present and get the slowly collaboration starts. So these are the two major ways one can happen. And third is the industry can be invited to see your open house, what are the problems you are doing, or research you are doing, or faculty members you are doing. And then by the process, the industry slowly latch on to the problem with the faculty member and its lab and starts funding. So these are the process by which generally done. Some exceptionals are there. Some big industries, they advertise on their website, these are our open projects and funding available, please apply, where the people apply in a competitive way. They go through the scrutiny, reviews and all, and they keep funding. But the easier one is the first three one, which I said.
Okay, maybe let me add about 2 cents. Okay, so my request, particularly for some of the engineering college faculty, is that you do have a lot of footfalls of the people, industry folks come for recruitment, selection, etc. Generally, what happens, my observation is, there is one professor in charge of placement. So all the faculty members think that, look, it is only his or her job. Okay, so my feeling is that maybe other faculty members could also come, maybe over lunch or maybe over dinner or maybe over a cup of tea in between, starts meeting and interacting with them. I think a much larger amount of, because when they are there to recruit, they actually have time. So I think don't simply say that, look, only the professor in charge of recruitment or placement in charge should take care. All others could, I think you should make the industry folks welcome, talk to them, take them to the lab. And if you don't feel that your lab is in not great shape, I think when they feel that lab is in not great shape, they would feel like writing a check. Okay, but to take them there. I think socializing by faculty with industry folks is something which colleges should really kind of step up tenfold, hundredfold. Maybe I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sadagopan and Professor Debrata Das for inputs on those lines. Next question is from Prajwal Sharma to Dr. Alok. It says, with technology changing very quickly, it might not be very easy for institutes to adapt quickly to the changes, considering the policy and the funding. What do you think is the role of industry to make quality education available so that the quality and quantity of engineers are available?
I think whatever university is able to do, and also looking into all the other changes and partnering with other universities, being part of bigger organizations, affiliations, that in any case university would do. Coming to specific part of the industry, I have two thoughts. One is, the program that we did in MTech with IIITB, it's a kind of quality education because, people have reached with 5 years, 10 years, 15 years experience. And when they become students, they struggle a little bit, because they are not in that habit of answering questions and things in the beginning. So if you give them comfort, but they have a lot of experience there, and then they start writing publications and patents, and Professor Das will vouch for that, like a lot of things that he has done jointly. So even if it's not that collaborative program, but even otherwise, if there is a provision like the Management Institute does in 5 years, 6 years, after that you come, when people have an experience, somehow if you can bring them in with a little grace, that they may not be academically as this thing, because many a times if you have to meet the same criteria, they may fail there and you can never end up. But if you bring them, then they bring a new dimension to the whole class. There is bright set of people and they should understand that they are not the brightest, and there are people who knows blockchain more, and this is what they are agile, they are faster in that, and so I need to pick that up. But I have this experience in turn. So it's a mentoring, reverse mentoring among peers that happens. That is very enriching. And I would like to encourage that kind of things if it is within your purview to make that happen. The other point I wanted to say is, the industry projects. We have a lot of global research funding, and many of the bigger corporations have. There are bilateral programs. But what industry expects is a little bit focused. This is the expertise in which the institute wants to grow. There is a lab, there is a focused problem, and some minimum level of agreement that, in 6 months, I will deliver these in 9 months. Because industry mindset is what you said, that on 21st June that you will deliver, you better deliver on 21st June. This is the mindset. Now, you cannot change that because it is in the business. So how do you make sure, when you make that agreement of joint work, enough flexibility so that, professors enjoy that part and bring the students and long-term things, but also adhering to certain disciplines and quality and time. If we understand each other better in that, then I believe, you can also have a better programs. These are 2 points I wanted to make.
Thank you, Dr. Alok. Next question, probably all our panelists can pitch in. It goes like, in the era of e-learning, augmenting the classroom learning, how do you create a culture and rigor that helps in character building, which traditional education program has the reputation for?
Professor Das, because you talked about ethics, so you should take it.
Yeah, that is Yeah,
Right.
yeah, online. That is the thing. Thank you, Professor. And this is online education has multiple challenges. One of them, what you said, that how to know about the other side, what he's thinking, what are the ethical backgrounds, because you don't see them and their activities as you see in a face-to-face kind of activities. So these are the things which come up from through the recommendations, who knows them well, and people may ask, if a known person, well-known person, what is in your schools or somewhere you have studied, give the recommendations. So all those things will come in, but still an online platform development is a huge challenge with respect to the what I explained before, that online platforms has to come up where a person as a professor who or a teacher teaching and the student should be front to front, looks like a face to face as if he's teaching. Till that time, these kind of challenges will be there. It's not
Yeah.
possible to replace face to face completely at the present juncture.
Thank you, Professor Devrata, for that. So the next question is specifically addressed to Professor Sadagoppan sir. Do you recommend uniformity in the curriculum contents across the nation as far as technical education is concerned? If so, how long would it take to happen?
Okay, so this is a question on which I have strong views. Okay, so I do hope that you will appreciate my strong views. I am a great believer that uniformity invariably leads to mediocrity. Okay, I think let us not believe some educational administrators. Let us start believing some teachers. Our country, we are such a diverse country, and we have amazing talent of so many types, shapes, and varieties. Okay, I think it is important that every teacher feels that he's not a robo who has been programmed to teach a kind of some curriculum printed by some ABC. Okay, so in that sense, I don't want this uniformity because I think it is not good. However, what you might want is you might want to benchmark. I think it is important that people keep comparing, and we need to have large number of workshops. This is something which higher education can learn from school education. So throughout the summer, the school teachers and school principals are busy comparing their notes, comparing their curriculum, etc., etc. And this seems to be part of their ethos. I think we need to bring that to the professional institutions. Let there be hundreds of workshops where people talk about what was the curriculum, what papers they were referring to, what textbooks they were using, what labs they were doing it. And today technology permits you to share all of it. Let everything be there. Okay, then I think what is important is uniformity is likely to guarantee what is called the minimum, but I think we should not stop at the minimum. We have to maximize. Okay, so benchmarking ensures that you are able to take care of the minimum and you are also able to scale up. I think that is what I would like. And I think, my good friend, Professor K.R.S. Murthy, who used to be the director of IMB, he used to put a very nice stuff. There are two ways in which you can do. One is to do what is called stamping. Okay, that means you crush people. Other one is to become a magnet. Everybody wants to get attracted to you. So the moment you make it into a magnet, things go up, right? I am teaching this, I am teaching this. Why can't you teach this? Why can't we do that? So we actually end up teaching much more, make it far more creative, and the students enjoy, the faculty enjoy. I think, remember, education is all fun. I think it's important, right? Education is a creative process, a discovery process. It is not mugging up something and throwing it out, right? It is something which is so such a human, such an intensive, and such a creative process. I think what I would like to have is for people to benchmark, so that ensure that the minimum is there, but let the faculty members rise to the highest level. Let not a central authority limit their creativity, limit their competences, and let the students and the teachers together discover this process. I think sky should be the limit, or to quote my good friend Dr. Kalam, a lot of times we used to say that let us think of the moon. He said, don't think of small, don't set the students very small targets. Tell them a big target. So don't ask them to think of the moon. They should think of the Mars. Remember, the moon is the shortest and the Mars is the farthest from this planet, right? I think that is what we need. Let us really think big and let every teacher in this country dream big. Okay, sorry for that long answer because it is something which is very close to me. Thank you.
No problem, sir. I think we definitely the participants would have benefited from that. And we would take one last question and wrap up the session for day. And for this, I think both our professors can pitch in. So the question is how academicians can balance between teaching, research, and content development.
Okay. Okay. So excellent question. You see, as I mentioned earlier, that knowledge creation and knowledge dissemination are two sides of the coin. So we need to keep doing it, right? If we don't do it enough, then it becomes insipid. And if you only do knowledge creation, if you don't disseminate, you don't get a chance to see teaching to bright students and they asking you uncomfortable questions, your ego getting hurt is very important. I used to tell my students what makes an IIT, IIIT teacher great is we go to the class and then get wounded all over by harsh questions for which you don't have an answer. But only thing is we do have self-respect less than us. So we lick our wounds, do our homework, go back to the lab, go back to the library, think hard, and next day morning we come back and tell the student the answer. And then the student will say, Sale ko kuch atta hai, right? So I think that is what we enjoy most. Okay, at the tinge of their eyes, there will be a thankfulness, there is a gratitude that this professor really works hard to find an answer. That is what we look for, right? I think so. In that sense, we need both research and teaching. And to me, content creation and teaching are again two sides of the same coin. See, content creation is advanced preparation for a class. I think our teachers' generation, they had such good memory, they could actually orchestrate so well. We can't do that. I think the current generation can't even do half because I think it's a different world, right? So content creation makes your job much easier. So content creation and the traditional teaching are again two sides of the coin. So you just find out a good equilibrium between them, and it's not 50-50. For some it is 40-60, some it is 60-10. For nobody it is 5 and 95. It is somewhere between 30 to 50%, 30-70 to 70-30. I think I will stop there and over to Professor Das.
Thank you, Professor. Very nicely said and to the point. I hope question is already answered. But one thing I wanted to add to that is that, you see, we are teaching engineering subjects, say, or the math or science, whatever it may be. The content is engineering math, but it is an art. How to start the class, where to start the class, how to end the class, in between, how to take this an art of as if you are acting on a stage for make the student understand very clearly what you want to communicate. And that is one of the things which we learn in this process of teaching and which is very, very important. And it has to carry it for the whole life of our teaching. Second part is that research part. Yes, as he rightly said, it is a two side of the coin, teaching and research. Good teaching leads to the good research, and the good research output again leads to the input to a teaching for your next course of electives and all. So the research has to be carried on, and also for that, time has to be brought out. You have asked the question how to bring out the times. Of course, time will be there, but generally our Indian professors are a little more loaded with the teaching. So if you can balance the teaching part, then the research part will come out very nicely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, professors. I am sure that with this elated panel, the question answer session would be would keep going on, but in the interest of time, we would be wrapping up. And before going on to the last mile of this workshop, I would request all the participants to turn on your video feed so that we can take a group pic. So if at least this was a physical event, we would have definitely done that. So adapting to the new normal, I request all the participants to turn on the video feed so that we can also keep this for our records.
Chenkappa, you should turn on too. You are not there.
Sure, I'll do that.
Yeah, if you could do that.
Thank you.
Professor Khan, if you can do that.
Okay.
Doing it.
We are
Hope you're
missing
able to
you.
see.
Professor Khan, we are missing you. Alok Das.
No, I'm doing, sir.
Okay.
Are you able to see me?
No.
No. Oh.
Not yet.
I have switched on my.
Yes, now we
Now
can.
we are able to see. Now we are able to
Thank
see.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so
So
much.
one last time, all of you say cheese.
Please.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was so
Thank
nice.
Thank you very much.
Such an allied
Thank
panel. Such an allied panel. It was very nice hearing all of them and all the ideas. Thank you so much. We are enlightened.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thanks for your
Thank
time.
you.
We said 2 hours, 2 hour 45 minutes. So many people. So we are really thankful.
Special
Thank
thanks
you.
to Dr. Alok Day.
Yeah.
Oh, sir.
You actually
You-
brought all of us together. So thank you.
Dr. Day, thank you very much. And also the
Thank you.
IEEE ComSoc.
I hope it has been, very helpful for people. And Professor Sadagopan, we want you to keep going, contributing.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
We
Thank you
are
so
always
much.
there, with you.
Yeah.
Professor Das, I am sure you will have your new responsibilities. All the best.
Thank you.
Yeah, so formally now I would request Professor Jyotsna Bapat, Dean IEEE, definitely IEEE ComSoc Bangalore Chapter Execom member and also IIITB Dean to formally have the vote of thanks. Ma'am, over to you.
Dr. Alok Day, I will tell you something interesting. In the early days of IIIT, so people used to say IIIT. Okay, and then what I found was becoming very difficult. I actually told them that, look, we will follow the IEEE stuff. And I used to write IIIT within bracket IIIT. Okay, so our IIII comes from your IIIT. Okay, so thank you.
So this story will remain in mind for a long time because this workshop. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, a big thank you to the speakers for today, Professor Sadagopan, Professor Das, and Dr. Dev. Each one of you gave us a fantastic viewpoint towards the ICT education, right from the history. Thank you, Professor Sadagopan, especially for that. The research, the education, industry interaction, as well as the involvement. Thank you, IEEE ComSoc section, for arranging this event and executing it flawlessly, as you always do. Special thanks to Mr. Chengappa for managing the event so well. And lastly, big thanks to the audience. Your active participation and insightful questions really made the event really special. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank
So
you.
much. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. See you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Till we meet again, please stay safe, stay home, and let's keep on the spirit of learning with us. As the quote goes, that there is always room for improvements. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.